Good morning and welcome to the Calaveras County Board of Supervisors regular meeting for August 8, 2023. If you can, please rise for the pledge to our flag. Supervisor Hubbard, can you please lead us?
Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, liberty and justice.
We will move on to the next item on our agenda, which is staff announcements. Jesse, do you have an announcement for us? Sheriff, we're going to let Jesse go first.
Absolutely.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Chair Toffanelli, honorable members of the board, Jesse Fowler, Agricultural Commissioner and Director of Waste and Measures. I'm here today because National Farmers Market Week is August 6th through 12th, so this week. National Farmers Market Week is an annual celebration that highlights the vital role farmers markets play in our nation's food system. Coordinated by the Farmers Market Coalition, this year's celebration recognizes more than 50 years of farmers markets having influenced the ways Americans eat, shop, and connect their food to farmers and with each other. Farmers markets also serve as a valuable educational opportunity to speak with local farmers and learn what's in season and how favorite fruits and vegetables are produced, and also acquire an enhanced understanding of agriculture as a whole. So we have 3 certified farmers markets in Calaveras County. The first one is an Angels Camp, which operates through October 1st, and it is Fridays from 5 to 8 p.m. The second is in Murphy's, and that one operates through October 29th. That's Sundays from 9 to 1. And then the last one is West Point, which operates through October 12th, and that's Thursdays from 4 to 7 p.m. So to help celebrate, I really hope to see everybody go out and to visit their local certified farmers markets. Thank you. That's all I have. Any questions? No? Okay.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Jesse. Thank you. Sheriff DiBasilio.
Mr. Toffanelli, Chair Toffanelli, that is.
Good morning.
How are you folks doing this morning? Good morning, Chair. Good morning, Honorable Supervisors, County Council, and CEO. Still having a hard time changing that from CAO to CEO. I'm in here this morning. I wanted to bring something to your folks' attention. We have a staffing problem. We've had a staffing problem, and you guys know that we've had a staffing problem. But it's being exasperated at this point. We're losing people like there's no tomorrow. You folks approved a Correctional Officer 1, Correctional Officer 2 position, which has made a huge, huge difference in our staffing levels. I have 31 correctional officers. At one point, we were down to 20, and we ran between 18 and 20 correctional officers for quite a while. When you guys did the adjustment and made it to where we had a correctional officer 1 and a correctional officer 2, it gave them a bump in pay. It brought them up to about where Tuolumne County is right now, which we were losing people to. So it's made a big difference. We're now to a point to where our staffing levels are coming up. We're doing a lot of hiring. We have a lot of people that are coming in as correctional officers. So that's been a good thing. The problem we're having now is our dispatchers. We're at a critical level. I have a sergeant who was working as a dispatcher. I was out Sunday driving around, just being the sheriff, and I hear my sergeant running the radios on a Sunday. And he's my one of my sergeants that usually works Monday through Friday, and he's on the radio a lot. I have allocated to me 12 dispatchers. I believe I'm down to 7 right now, could be 8. And to run that service 24/7, it doesn't work. We should be running with at least 2 people every day. On the weekends, we should be running with 3. So you can do the math. We're hurting for dispatchers. Amador County was in that same shape. They were down to 5 dispatchers, so they were in real sad shape. So I know that they just gave their folks an emergency 5% raise along with another 3%. to help get their correctional officer staff, because they're hurting for correctional officers also, and their dispatch. So we're in that same boat with our dispatchers, and we're in that same boat with our deputies yet again. We've been running with 9 to 11 deputies short of being fully staffed for a long, long time. I have some stats here I want to run off to you. In 2022, we hired 7, 8, 9, 10 people. And we lost almost all of them. In 2023, we've hired 9 people. With the retirements and the people quitting, we've lost 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 people. Some of those people, and that doesn't account for the amount of people we send through the academy. A lot of the people we've sent through the academy, which is 6, in the last 2 years, we've sent almost 15 people through the academy, and we've lost more than that. And it's all about pay. And I understand, you guys know I was a DSA president for 13 years. I understand the negotiation part, but you guys aren't fighting with the unions, any of the unions right now. You're fighting with the other counties and the other municipalities that are paying these people more money. Tuolumne County did a 20% pay bump in one shot. Our folks got a 17% over 5 years. We're still behind Tuolumne County. We're way behind Amador. We're behind everybody that we are associated with in the bargaining units. We're getting to a point where I may have to start cutting services. I may have to start going to 911 calls. I may have to stop going to anything that's not an in-progress call. It's getting to that point. We just don't have the staff. I've got 4 detectives that are running themselves ragged. I talked to one of them this morning. I says, "Your head out of water?" He says, "Well, my nose is." He's having a hard time. And it's right now, I feel pretty confident in saying that 98% of the people like their sheriff. There's always going to be the 2% that don't, because they didn't make them happy. But I think we have a very high morale as far as what goes on within the sheriff's office going right now. The problem is that they know that they can go elsewhere. In the next 3 to 4 weeks, I have 3 corporals and 1 sergeant that are leaving. Those are people that have a lot of experience and they have a lot of time in the community. And I told you guys this before, you step over dollars to pick up dimes. Every 10 deputies we lose is $1 million. Because from the time we get the application to the time they're a solo deputy, it costs us, with everybody's time involved, it's almost $100,000 per deputy. So there's $1 million that we're losing. And it's not just that money. What you're losing is the experience that these guys, these deputies that have time on, we're losing that institutional knowledge, not only of the county, but of the bad guys, where the schools are, where the banks are, where the hiding places are. You're losing that knowledge. And the worst part of all of this is we're losing the experience in the sense that now we've got a guy who's 6, 8 months, a year, year and a half, 2 years on, and he doesn't have all that experience that some of us that have been here for 4 or 5 and longer years, to know that when you go to this call with a guy with a gun, do you shoot him or do you try and talk him down? Now you're opening yourselves up to lawsuits. That's where the real big money starts kicking in. So in the grand scheme of things, if the deputies are making more money, we can retain them. We're at a 22 to 23% attrition rate right now, and that's ridiculous. Between the JBTC contract for the jail that I brought to the county, there's about $1 million a year that we're bringing in. And a lot of that money you haven't realized yet because we just upped those numbers. We went from 8 beds to 18 beds. We also have the jail contract with Shasta County, Tuolumne County, and Amador County. That equates to almost another $300,000+ a year. There's $1.3 million. I am asking you folks, and I understand the county is tight on money. I completely get that. But we need to start redirecting our focus on public safety. Because if we do parks and recs, that's great. But we start bringing people in from out of the county, our population goes up. I don't have the services or the people to tend with those services. It's going to be a problem. We want to put a new park up in Railroad Flat. That's going to be a problem. If I don't have the staff to go up there and deal with the homeless that are going to start living in there and the drug dealings that are going to go on and all the other problems that are associated with when people know that there aren't cops around. We need to get our staffing level up and we need to be able to maintain them. So again, I'm asking you to redirect your focus back to public safety to where it needs to be. We need to keep our constituents safe. And I can't do that if I don't have the staff. And if I can't keep the staff, we're going in a vicious circle. So, any questions for me?
Thank you, Rick.
Sorry to bring that upon you, but we're at critical levels. Thank you.
Any other staff announcements? Nancy?
Good morning, board. Happy to see you today. Nancy Giddens, County Librarian. I have some good news, and that is to report about our summer reading and our summer lunch programs. We had a record number of registrations in our summer reading this summer. 1,057 children signed up to participate in summer reading, in which they receive 4 books and packets of activities throughout the summer, and another book if they bring their reading logs back. So we've logged hundreds of thousands of hours, or minutes, that our children have read this summer in Calaveras County. You know, the purpose of this is to help bridge the learning gap that our children experience during the summer break. So we're super happy about that. And the biggest joy that those numbers bring us is that of those children, 86% of them completed the program, which means they picked up all of their books and all of their materials. And that's a record high for us. And as you know, simultaneously with summer reading, we offer lunch at the library. We offered lunch in 6 locations daily this summer. Valley Springs, Smoke Hill, West Point, Railroad Flat, San Andreas, and Angels Camp. And then in the other 3 places where we just have not worked out the mechanics of getting them the food on time for lunch, because we pick up our food in Jackson from the Amador Unified School District, we offered food once a week with a program. So we did it on their story time and their children's programming days. So Tuesday in Murphy's, Wednesday in Arnold, and Thursday in Copperopolis. And those programs were also very successful. So I'm happy to report to you that over those 6 weeks where we were helping to meet the food insecurity that our children face during the summer, we served 5,547 lunches to our children.
Amazing. Good job. Are there any other staff announcements? Do we have anybody online?
Yeah. Brian.
Yes, Lisa.
Brian Galicia. Brian,
Yes.
go ahead.
Good morning. I'm Brian Garcia with the Calaveras County Service Office. Good morning, Sheriff O'Malley and all aboard. I'm going to discuss this morning the fact that next Monday we will be beginning our first veteran wages support. It will be at the San Andreas Library at 1299 Hunter Road in San Andreas. And it will be happening every second and fourth Monday of every month. Anyone interested in attending, please feel free to call us at 209-754-6910, or you can reach out to Neil Parrish, who is hosting the group at 209-754-6624. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Do you have anyone else?
There are no other comments online.
No other comments online? Okay, with that, we'll move on to our next agenda item. This is the recognition and acknowledgement. The proclamation from the sheriff. Adopt a proclamation recognizing Sheriff Sergeant Laurie Maury for 23 years of service to the residents of Calaveras County and congratulating Sergeant Murray on her retirement. And I will turn this over to Supervisor Hubbard.
Thank you, Chair. Whereas Sergeant Laurie Murray retired on June 30th, 2023, after 23 years of dedicated service to the County of Calaveras and has been a valued and well-respected member of the Calaveras County Sheriff's Office. And whereas Laurie Murray's passion for being a first responder started through the Calaveras High School ROP program. And whereas prior to employment with the Sheriff's Office, she worked as a medic for approximately 14 years in Stockton and Calaveras County. And whereas she was hired by the Sheriff's Office in December of 1999, she was a sponsored recruit through the Ray Simon Criminal Justice Training Center Police Academy in 2000. And whereas upon becoming a deputy sheriff, Laurie worked various positions within the Sheriff's Office over the years, including patrol deputy, Lake Comanche deputy, senior deputy corporal, field training officer, detective, and search and rescue team member. And whereas Laurie's promotion to the rank of sergeant came at a time when the Sheriff's Office operated animal service, and she served as that division's lead and supervisor for several years. And whereas Laurie was an integral member of the construction and transition leadership team for the new Sheriff's Office and jail complex. And whereas Laurie was served most recently and continuously for several years as the sergeant and supervisor for the court security division of the Sheriff's Office. And whereas Laurie was consistently shown continuous dedication to the safety of staff and the public, and has coordinated site security assessments and security improvements while assigned as the court security supervisor. And whereas Laurie received several awards while at the Sheriff's Office, including but not limited to campaign service ribbons and unit citations, and she is a graduate of the Supervisory Leadership Institute. And whereas Laurie has been a continuous positive influence within the Sheriff's Office and has exemplified her commitment to the community, department, and her assignments in her actions and accomplishments. Her tireless work ethic, professional integrity, and perseverance made her service exemplary. And whereas Laurie's service has created a tremendous impact and her legacy will continue to resonate with the people of Calaveras County, the Sheriff's Office, and everyone who had the pleasure of working with her, Laurie has enriched our county with a service and is worthy of the community's respect and recognition. With that, I'd open it to the public for any comment.
Laurie's been a joy to work with, and the reason I'm the sheriff I am is because she was one of my field training officers. She's the one that made me go out and learn this job, and she did a fantastic job. I have nothing but high praise for her as the medic and deputy that she has been throughout the years. She is exemplary in what a police officer should be. And I want to tell you a quick story about her one time. I was on the training program. I was in West Point, and we were on a day shift. And we get this, 10:35, I need help from a peace officer. So my corporal, that was in charge of me, John Black, who some of you remember, we go flying out of West Point to catch Laurie to try and help her out. Well, she had a guy in handcuffs, but he decided he wasn't going along with the program. And he was about my size. He might have even been a little bit bigger. And evidently, she jumped on his back and rode him like a cowgirl and brought him to the ground and kept him from taking off. So she is not someone to mess with, and I think everybody in the department knows that. But that just shows you her dedication. She's a cop at heart, there's no doubt. So I got nothing but praise for Laurie.
Do we have any comment online?
There are no online public comments.
With that, I'll bring it back to the board.
So move.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that Sergeant Lori Murray is recognized and honored for her unwavering dedication during her 23 years of service at the Calaveras County Sheriff's Office and for the residents of Calaveras County. This was passed and adopted by the Board of Supervisors of the County of Calaveras, State of California, this 8th day of August, 2023.
Wait, we need you to say something, Lori.
Say your final day. Thank you so much.
We'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is general public comments. Any item of interest to the public that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board and is not posted on the consent or regular agenda may be addressed during the public comment period. California law prohibits the board from taking action on any matter which is not posted on the agenda unless it is determined to be an emergency by the Board of Supervisors. If public comment is completed before 30 minutes allotted time period, the board will immediately move to the next order of business. If public comment is not completed during the allotted time period, it will be continued as the last item of business in order to provide an opportunity to the remainder of comments to be heard. So we are open for general public comments.
Good morning, Board. Happy Tuesday. I'm Cheryl McEwen Harper, and I am District 2. I live in West Point, Wilseyville. And I am here today to support my public sheriff and the safety of my community. We had a Dollar General put in, and we've had several carjackings. We have high-speed chases that go through our town, because if you're trying to get away from the police, the best place to run is through our town. The sheriff has said that we're getting to a point where we're going to start cutting critical services to the rest of the district. With deep respect to him and his office, we've already been dealing with that in West Point, Wilseyville. I've been there for over a decade. Response time is up to 40 minutes or more if we have an emergency. Our average age in our town is 61, so we're a small retirement community. There are people that have moved there in order to be away from police presence. The fact that we are 40 minutes from police response is known not only to us, but to the bad guys. We have people who dump dead cars. We have people who dump dead bodies. So when we're surrounded by, the national forest there, we find it a little ridiculous that the priority would be a park and rec commission for a $250,000, budget allocation. So I am asking that you consider that Calaveras County is 22% higher than the national average in homicides, 12% higher than the national average in violent crimes. Specifically, let me find my little spot here, I apologize. West Point, Wilseyville has 46% violent crime, property crime. So we're really asking you to help this community in particular. They're talking about putting a park there. And again, this attracts vandalism. And not that they're not already there, but it gives them a place to be and a place to cause problems. So we really need our sheriff's department. We've also recently had fire department shut down. Our critical services are more important than setting up a park and rec commission at this time for the community. Thank you for hearing me today.
Thank you. I want to make everybody aware, please keep an eye on the timer that you have in front of you.
Good morning, Vicki Ranke, Calaveras County. I just wanted to make a comment on the sheriff's report that he just gave and how important it is to the community. It's true, you know, the law enforcement, our safety should be your number one concern as board members. That should be your number one job. That's why we pay our taxes. We want to know that we're safe. Yes, we understand that this county isn't rich, and it's a big spread of land that we have to cover, but it should be your number one priority. There's got to be things that you could cut in this budget that you could pay law enforcement. Our son is a police officer in Sonoma County, and sadly, I have to admit it, because at his age group, money is important. They're going to want to buy a house. They're going to want to have a family and be able to take care of them. So it's huge. And when I hear this county say, well, it's the job, it's really not the money. No, for these kids, it's the money. And we need to be paying them for the job they're doing. It can be a dangerous job, and we appreciate them. So anyway, I just wanted to piggyback and give support to the sheriff. Thank you.
Good morning, Chief.
Good morning, Rich Dickinson, Fire Chief, Calaveras Consolidated. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk. I think all of you know where I'm at. You know, I'm the one that has the closed firehouse. I've been on every news station in Northern California. Tough time for me. But I'm not here to talk about that. I'm here to advocate for the sheriff, the deputies, you know, the line personnel. We're in tough times. I can't recruit anymore. Where we were, and this is what's going to happen to them, people wanted to work here. We are staffed, even though we had a closed firehouse. Where we are, the Valley Springs Station is browning out. The community's not happy. I do have a lot of support. There's the naysayers. They point the finger at me. They point the finger at the firefighters. They point the finger at the county. They point the finger at the state. They point the finger at the federal government. Where we're going, for me down there, I don't know, you know, but I know a lot of you live in our community. And I feel as I've failed. And that's how the sheriff's going to eventually feel. Because my job, when it's their worst day, to be able to put a fire truck in front of their house. What I need them. Everybody knows what goes on in Valley Springs, Rancho Calaveras. The extended times when we're staging for a suicide, for an assault, a dead body, fights at Comanche, fights at Hogan. I need them back. So I don't want them to be where I'm at, all right? I hope everybody understands you have an incredibly difficult job. I understand that. When I reached out to the feds, I tried to get a SAFER grant. They told me no. I tried other grants, tell me no. I tried to get a tax measure, get beaten up. Well, guess what? I'm a taxpayer too here. So it's going to affect me. It's going to affect the people who live with us. We can't recruit, we can't retain. It's a great place to live here, but it's about self-worth and putting food on the table for the worker. I do it for the love of the job. They do it for the love of the job. But at the end of the day, you got to put food on the table. And if you're not going to put food on the table and you're not going to take care of them here, they go somewhere else. I just lost yesterday. Keegan Dornbush would have never left. 12 years in our department, went to Manteca Lathrop. I have lost 30 firefighters in 7 years. I got 34 seconds. Luckily, the news media supports me. I know a lot of you up here live in my district too. I want to take care of you. They want to take care of you. But it comes down, people say, live within your means. You're crying wolf. Well, guess what? The roof is at the front door now, all right? And I got a banner hanging up there, and I took some shots for that. But you have to know that the firehouse is closed, because like them, when they're in trouble, they pull right up to the firehouse and they dump it off. Anyways, help them. Please help them, because I don't want them to be where I'm at. Thank you.
My name is Christopher Budner. My website is Calaveras2024election.com. I'll be reading from a prepared statement. I am the son of a firefighter. I have over 3 decades of experience in event safety protocols for arenas, amusement parks, convention centers, and cruise ships. The Butte wildfire of September 2015 was a PG&E causation. PG&E has been blamed for more than 30 wildfires since 2017 that destroyed over 23,000 homes and businesses and killed over 117 people. Today I express grave concerns shared by many in Calaveras regarding the public safety and extreme fire risk posed to the Arnold community by the Tesla supercharger station under construction in the northwest corner of Arnold's Meadowmont Center following the hastily approved electric vehicle charging station EVCS permitting process. To reiterate from my July 25th detailed 9-page written analysis, there is considerable acknowledged value in Calaveras County attracting and integrating green EVCS infrastructure. A properly sited, reviewed, inspected, and approved Tesla supercharger station is a very desirable addition to Arnold. Regrettably, the poorly selected siting of the facility on the parcel presents multiple public safety concerns that were left unaddressed by the fast-track ministerial permit approval. Points of concern include the permit process conditional exclusion of fire officials from participation in the review and approval of this high-risk facility, the proximity of this facility to residences, trees, large capacity propane tanks, and unregulated traffic. The root cause of this problem extends back to January 24, 2017, when a flippantly discussed and unanimously approved agenda item for the EVCS ordinance was introduced. Supervisors Tofinelli and Garamendi voted to approve the EVCS ordinance. The video record of the ordinance approval process is a shameful and lasting indictment of the continuing failure of this county's government to recognize and anticipate risk to public safety before its citizens insist. A high-risk EVCS is now under construction. The community insists upon a temporary injunction until a thorough review by fire officials, law enforcement, and public works has occurred to mitigate the risk and assure the community of public safety. Further, the EVCS ordinance must be repealed and replaced to insert fire officials in permitting and approval process for all non-residential EVCS installations. A detailed EVCS repeal and replace request was emailed to all of you on behalf of the citizens of Arnold and Calaveras on August 7th. Additional details regarding this urgent issue of county government negligence is at my website, Calaveras2024election.com.
Thank you very much, Christopher.
Good morning, Board. Bill McManus with the Calaveras Project. As I was going through the agenda today, which is going to be pretty extensive, there's a lot of things that there's webs that kind of tie a lot of these items together that we're going to be going through. So I thought I might recap something at the beginning that we can refer back to. At first I thought naming it original sin, but that's too extreme. So what I've named it is the original fraud. We need this frame to speak to several issues which will be touched upon as this meeting unfolds. 1795 and Measure C were the original fraud, developed with premeditation and malice aforethought to fool the public, to fool the voters. Since then, Measure C, the board action has been to reduce taxes for pot growers by 60%. Not too long ago, you increased taxes for every single homeowner in this county for the solid waste fee
by 85%. So now we know where the loyalties of this board lie. And as we go through the agenda today, a lot of issues are going to come up, a lot of statements are going to be made, and I would bet that on at least 50% of them, you can draw a straight line from the results, from the comments, back to the original fraud. The people of this county deserve to have better. They were fooled on Measure C, and we're not going to be fooled again. So, like I said, we've got a lot of work to do today. I appreciate your time and attention. Thank you.
Any other public comments?
That's it.
You?
Oh, everybody, I haven't been here in a long time. I've been busy living life. I just wanted to support the sheriff's office. And, you know, I look at the agenda items that we are presented with, and I think there's ways that we could do stuff that we could do differently. I'm not up there. I'm just talking. But I can tell you right now that there's got to be a way that we can support him in another way. There's got to be. The fire department closing is a big red flag for us. We have to look at it a different way. We have to find some kind of funding to raise it, to raise the pay. These guys are going down to Valley Spring, down to Fremont and Alameda County and the sheriff's office down there for a reason. It's because of the almighty greenback. Any of us would have. None of us would have been up here working for the pay that they're getting. So I just want to support that.
Any other public comments in the room? Seeing none, is there any online?
Yes, Lisa Kramer and Sarah Jones. We'll start with Lisa first. Lisa?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Can I go ahead and start then?
Yes.
Okay. Good morning, Board. Thank you for allowing me some time to speak this morning. My name is Lisa Kramer. I'm a full-time resident here in Arnhem, and I've owned my home here for about 9 years. My home is directly across the street from the back of the west end of the Meadowmont Shopping Center, where the Tesla charging station is being built, and I have serious concerns about the chosen site for the charging station. I'd like to start by saying that I'm not opposed to an EV station being built in Arnold or even at the shopping center. I just think that the charging station could be beneficial to the community and to the visitors who come here. However, the site for this build seems to have been made poorly and a permit issued without oversight or thought to community fire safety, the environment risks to the adjacent site or the people who live here. If this charging station was being built out front of the shopping center, along the highway in plain view of the public and travelers, with easy access on and off the highway, where there's more than ample space to do this safely, away from a densely forested, quiet neighborhood and easy access for emergency vehicles, the building made perfect sense, and I would be applauding this effort. Instead, the opposite is true for all of these factors. The charging station is being built hidden from view and tucked around the back of the shopping center, which is not easily accessible, and it's out of sight of drivers, a location that's problematic for a variety of reasons. Instead of cheering this addition to our community, I find myself learning more each day about a variety of potential risks given this chosen site and what it would mean to those of us who live in Arnold, as well as my own home. I have 3 main topics of concern that I'd like to address. The first one is fire risk of car and charger fires. The risk of one of these vehicles or the charging station itself catching fire is absolutely terrifying, especially where the station is being built. It's so close to the trees and the homes here. This would not be an issue if the station were being built out front because there's so much clear space around the front of the shopping center, far fewer trees, no residential homes, and plenty of room for emergency vehicles. The second one is the egress. There's only a one lane road around and behind the market, and it's used for delivery vehicles for all of the businesses located within the shopping center. It's only a matter of when, not if, collisions occur while attempting to access this area. Winter and snow issues will make this egress issue more challenging and just exacerbate the problem. Lastly, unlimited 24-hour access to the station, which will be unmanned, will mean that people are using the station around the clock for a minimum of 20 to 30 minutes or longer. I would like to know if there are any plans for mitigating the effect this has on neighboring homes with regard to light and noise pollution. If there is a plan for public restrooms to be built, trash receptacles installed, access to air and water, these would be standard items at a regular service station.
correcting these issues before they grant us.
I'm sorry,
Yes,
but your
ma'am.
time is up.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you for your time. I do appreciate it.
Thank you. Do you have any more? Yes.
Yes, we do. One more, we have Sarah Jones. Sarah?
Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Hi, thanks for giving me the floor. I'm Sarah Jones. I'm a homeowner in Arnold. I've been a homeowner for 7 years. And I just wanted, first off, echo the sheriff, fire chief, and the citizens who spoke today, sharing their concerns that safety is the #1 priority for Calaveras County residents. Which is why I also echo the concerns raised about the placement of this EV station behind the Meadowmont Shopping Center. To be clear, as a professional journalist with a beat focusing on sustainability and construction infrastructure, I do support and encourage EV infrastructure, and I understand the state is fast-tracking this progress with financial incentives and streamlined permit requirements. But it's the job of the local government to address and support the concerns of the community, and we've been given no opportunity to comment on issues that are posed by the approval of the owner's choice to locate the project behind the store in the woods, rather than a visible, expansive, highway-adjacent front parking lot. I'm not going to repeat all the valid concerns raised today, but I'd like to know how the supervisors would bring more transparency to this approval process by facilitating a path to productive dialogue with the community. Because as I'm sure you're aware, misinformation has been spreading and we are in need of a constructive solution. So we'll be looking forward to your next steps. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have others?
Here are no further online comments.
Okay, seeing no further public comments, we'll move on to the next item, which is our consent agenda. Consent agenda items are expected to be routine and non-controversial. They will be acted upon by the board at one time without discussion. Any board member, staff member, or interested party may request removal of an item from the consent agenda for later discussion. Is there any board member wish to remove an item from consent?
I do, 21.
Supervisor Follendorf, 21. Any other board member? I was going to pull one, but I think we'll go to staff. Teresa, you wish to pull an item?
Chair Toffenelli, I would like to pull number 7 for a correction on that item.
Any other staff member?
Good morning, Chair, members of the board. Doug Oliver, Chief Building Official. I'd like to pull item 10 for discussion or for clarification.
Item 10. Any other staff member? Anybody online?
There are no online requests.
Okay. Any member of the public wish to pull an item? You need to come up to the podium, please.
Yes, I'm requesting that you pull items number 6 and number 18.
Yes.
Items 5 through 8.
5 through 8. Well, 6 and 7 have already been pulled, so.
Yeah, okay, so we'll
So
make
you
one
can
more.
pull 5 and 8.
Yes.
Okay. Any other member of the public? Is there anybody online?
There are no online requests.
Okay, so I have items 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, and 18 that have been pulled. I'm open for a motion for the remainder.
Move.
Second. Motion by Supervisor Follendorf, second by Mr. Supervisor Stopper. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. We will go on to item number 5. This is an action item from administrative offices. Authorize the board chair to sign the response to June 19th, 2023 grand jury report regarding animal services. Al, you pulled this item.
Yes.
You have a question?
Yeah, I request that the response actually be made to the public on each of those items.
Pardon me?
The written response that you provided to the grand jury, if you could read that so the public could hear it.
You want us to read out the response?
Yes.
I'd have to ask the rest of the board on, is there any other public comments? on this item? Is the board interested in reading this item out, the response? I think you can go online and get all the responses online and read them online if you like. Are you interested?
And just so everyone's clear, I mean, it is in the agenda packet. It's available to review.
It's available, it's in the agenda packet, and you can go online and read it. So I don't see any interest, so I'll bring item 5 back to the board. Is there a motion for item 5?
So moved.
Have a motion by Supervisor Stopper.
Second.
Second by Supervisor Huberty. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Moving on to action item number 6. Bill, you pulled this item? Item 6, you pulled it?
Yes.
You need to come up and,
Okay.
well, yeah, you need to come up and say why you pulled it. Otherwise, we don't know why you pulled it.
Yes, I would like to pull item 6 so that we can have a discussion and public comment regarding item 6. Well, I thought public comment might come after some presentation because this is a board action responding to the grand jury report. It has nothing to do with me, other than if you make your case why you responded the way you did, I may have some comments about that. Do you want those comments in advance of what you're doing?
Well, it's on our consent, so you pulled it. If you have comments on the item, you need to make your comments on the item now.
Okay, my comments on the item is after going through the grand jury finding and the county response to finding 1, I've highlighted some lines in there that it does not have a program, nor does the Board of Supervisors directed to undertake it to affirmatively test for soil or water contamination on any parcels, cannabis related or otherwise. And the theme continues on through paragraph after paragraph of the county's response. And the theme seems to be, if you don't look for it, you won't find it. So don't look and don't find it. The original fraud, Measure C, and 1795, we can draw a straight line back to that. We've guaranteed protections from all the activities at pot grows that you were going to allow. And when we get down to the point where there may be some problems, all of a sudden, the county's out of money. Well, that goes back to original fraud. That was Measure C. We were supposed to be doing the backstroking money based on what the pot industry was going to supply to take care of their problems to protect us, not take it out of the general fund to protect. We're already paying for that. So as we go on, it says the county does not have a CEQA compliant program in place to regulate cannabis-related environmental impacts on permitted cannabis cultivation sites. And while soil and water testing for contaminants are not part of the program, EMA does work with DCC, I guess that's all internal, to ensure compliance with the various provisions of Chapter 1795. That is not happening. That's the straight line back to original fraud. And back in those days, the issue of environmental dangers and toxins and all that kind of stuff was a very hot topic. And to this board, almost a lot of you here, we produced a copy from Dr. Gabriel's extensive research on pot groves throughout Northern California and within California. It was sponsored by the state of California, Fish and Game. I've got a copy of it with me. Everyone on the board got a copy of that. We encourage you to read it because it has vital information about what can happen out in our environment when these toxins are not controlled, and we've seen it. So, you know, if you didn't read it, that's one thing. If you read it and didn't understand it, I don't blame you. It was a pretty thorough research project. So I guess what I'm getting at is, since we don't have the money to do it right, where are you going to find the money? And if you can't do it right the first time, then you're going to find time to do it again. So Measure C is gone, that money, bye-bye. Other things, bye-bye. And now we're left with money having to be drawn out to support all the other services here. We have to share that general fund. That's the people's money. And so the people's money was not dedicated to control pot and all of its implications. So that's my response.
Thank you. Is there other comments?
Chair Toffenelli. I'd like to respond a little bit to that on the public comment side in support of the county. When we show up to a site that has what we consider any illegal substances, we do get a hold of Fish and Wildlife. We do get a hold of environmental agencies that need to be handled. The problem that we have is that if we don't see something and we leave, we now no longer have a search warrant. We can't do anything on that property legally. So even for our environmental agency to go into that property, they can't do that unless somebody shows that there's an actual problem. So when we were dealing with some of the sites that had the fluorocarbon, which is an illegal substance in the United States, we were dealing with that. So I understand Mr. McManus's concerns, but we do handle the concerns. And I was a little not very happy with the grand jury's report because of that. The environmental agency that we have, excuse me, the environmental agency we have and the sheriff's office, we do work together. They did not do very good research when they did the research for their grand jury report, because we do handle the environmental impacts to this county when we know about them or if we're on the site. So the county is doing their job in that aspect. I just want to make sure you folks understand that. Again, if we find it, we will deal with it, yes.
No, go ahead, Vicki. I'm trying to.
Okay. Yes, we also wanted to request number 6 to be pulled. Vicki Ranke, Calaveras County, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Calaveras residents against commercial marijuana, crack 'em. And we asked to pull this item so we can comment on the report and the response that was given by the county. First of all, complaints to the grand jury come from concerned citizens. So this was citizen-driven. We find that the grand jury report valid and agreed with most of their evaluation and findings, but we found that the county's response was quite inadequate in a lot of places. So I'll go over just a few of the highlights. When the program began in 2019, the county assured the residents that marijuana cultivation was going to bring millions of dollars to the county general fund. Under direction of Peter Miller and Albert Alt, a Department of Cannabis Control was established along with a budget that was going to cover the costs for staffing, code compliance, Division of Cannabis Control, etc., so the county could administer the program with proper funding. But as we all know, all the big dollars that marijuana was going to bring to the county didn't happen. Along with the Board of Supervisors voting to give the growers a 60% tax break, it was no wonder the county has no funds to administer this program, which we were all promised. Oh, don't worry, we're going to cover the cost. It's not going to cost the county anything. And the people were all concerned about all of this. A policy needs to be developed to remedy this problem. There needs to be testing for contaminants in the water and testing of soil for contaminants to prevent environmental damage. This is important to the residents of this community, especially a rural county like we are. You ruin people's water or their property and they can't raise their animals and grow their crops. Looking at the finding in response to finding number 3, environmental remediation on cultivation sites does not only pertain to the eradication of illegal grows, which the sheriff just addressed. 1795.130 addresses remediation of all former cultivation sites prior to May 10th of 2016. There were at least 950 grow sites in 2016 prior to the ordinance approval. And those, as far as we know, have not been eradicated or not sure this was ever completed. No permit should have been issued if prior grow sites were not remediated. Where are the documents showing that remediation has been completed on these sites? Perhaps you need to put a moratorium on new permits until the county gets a handle on proper implementation of 1795. Thank you for your time.
Mr. Sikalia.
Good morning, Board, again. And the taxpayers really appreciate it. We have a good sheriff's department and also a good Board of Supervisors. It's 2 blessings. On the grand jury report, I don't think they were able to find any testing anywhere for the consequences of marijuana. There was no strain testing, no well testing, no soil testing, nothing. But there's an opinion that the marijuana industry is contaminating the soil. We know that odor, but I think that what should be done is do the testing, and if it shows that there is no contamination, quit saying that there is. Thank you.
Hi, Susan Morse, District 4, also resident of Calaveras County. I'm also speaking on 6. Most of you know that I have spent many hours in these chambers over the last 7 years, listening and participating in the discussions and the considerations given to 1795. We have all, many here have spent hours and hours, days and days. The residents have received commitments from the board that the county was committed to proper implementation and enforcement of 1795. Many of you sitting here today committed to that. Needless to say, when I read the Silver Grand Jury's final findings report, based on its end of the investigation, I was in agreement with the findings and recommendations. When I received and read the county's responses, I was dismayed and disappointed by its responses. These responses are not well thought out. Given the Silver Grand Jury's final findings report was signed by the judge and filed on July 11th, 2023, per California Penal Code Section 9333, the county's responses are due in 90 days. That would be approximately October 9th, 2023. In my opinion, in candor, this matter should be referred back for further consideration, and there's plenty of time to do this. Our residents deserve better than this. Please keep your commitment you made to the residents in April of 2021 and cure the issues that have been brought out by the Silver Grand Jury, and let's get back on track. All we've heard so far this morning is all of the issues that are facing this county. We need to step up and figure out how to cure them. Not run for them, not make excuses, not say we don't have enough money. We've given away a whole bunch of money in the last couple of years just on the marijuana issue. We need to come together and end this. There's a lot of good things. Everybody talks about this great county. It can be great, but we all need to step up, keep our promises, keep our commitments. The residents have done that. Thank you.
Any other public comments? Let's get through not staff yet. Let's get through public comments first, and then staff can reply. Any other public comments? None in the room? Is there any online?
There are no online public comments.
Okay, Doug, you want to comment?
Chair, members of the board, Doug Oliver, Chief Building Official. I'm going to speak briefly on in defense of the program. A lot has been said, and I can say that I'm going to say first and foremost that I have deep and abiding respect for the grand jury process, and I appreciate all of the information and communication that we've had between us and the board every time, or the grand jury, every time we get together. I think it's a very useful process, and it has helped me in the past improve my department. So in no way is this any shadow cast on them, but I will say there was some information presented that did not end up in the grand jury report that I do want to bring to light here that could be helpful for the public. And I want to identify that hopefully at the end of this, there will be an understanding that your staff did everything that your board asked them to do. As it relates to legal cannabis grows, there's a couple of ordinance sections that I want to address here. Unfortunately, I wasn't prepared, so I looked it up on my phone while public comment was going on. So if you give me just a moment to look this up. As it relates to remediation, there's a couple of different sections here. One of them is the requirement that in order to obtain a cannabis cultivation permit, you have to demonstrate that the site you previously occupied has been remediated. That process has been followed. I'm not going to get into the code section because that's one of the things that's primarily of concern right now, is that have you been following this process? That data is available, it is transparent, it is in our permit tracking software. Every time an application is applied for, there is a remediation inspection. That inspection is conducted by a code enforcement officer, and any corrections that are noted are completed before we can apply for that permit. Now, in some cases, the process entails a site inspection of the same site. So rather than have a remediation inspection and then a forward compliance inspection, we wrap that into one, and one inspector goes out, looks for everything. And we have an extensive list of items that we go through for the remediation and for the approval of that permit to make sure the site is safe, that there isn't any evidence of contaminants, and that we have a measure of safety in the environment, including well testing for water pressure and recharge and that sort of thing, although we don't target contaminants in the water. I want to address that at the end, though. There's something very important that we need to address. But in addition, this section here, which is 1795-130, gives a time frame for compliance. And this is specifically item D. Formal cannabis cultivation site that exists prior to the adoption of the current version of this chapter shall be fully remediated and restored in compliance with this chapter by February 9th, 2020. That does not direct anyone to go out and enforce all these sites. This is a statement to the public that if you had a cannabis site, you have to come into compliance by this date. Okay, there's nothing in our ordinance that charges cannabis control or code compliance with going out and making sure all of these are remediated. It is simply a statement that if you were cultivating before, you have to remediate your site, which means that if we receive a complaint or we are driving by and we see that there is a problem, we are obligated to pull over, do the inspection, cite the individual for non-compliance. This could be anything. This could be garbage. This could be not tearing down old plant materials. It could be potentially, a chemical spill or something like that. But if we see it, we would be charged with pulling over and dealing with it. But it does not charge us with going out and remediating 1,000 some odd cases. But what this ordinance does do is require that if someone wants to get a permit to continue cultivating, they have to show proof that they have remediated. And then from there, it's a code compliance issue based on our observations in the field, not necessarily a proactive system similar to the other cases that we have. Now, as it relates to determining if there are contaminants, there's nothing in the ordinance that requires soil testing on every site. Similar to every other violation that we enforce throughout the county, it wouldn't necessarily be appropriate to target a person and say, I want you to, let's say, you put that roof on your house without a permit. I want you to remove that entire roof so that we can see that the substrate was done correctly. Okay, we could do that, but that's unfairly looking towards a contractor and saying you don't know how to do your job. Maybe not the best example, but in the course of code compliance investigations, we do our best to identify if there is evidence to suggest that there is a form of contamination. And once that has occurred, then we trigger environmental health, industrial hygienists, other individuals who can go out there and do a deeper test. If we don't see a violation on the site, we don't assume that there is a violation on the site. We assume, similar to everything else, that there's innocence rather than assuming guilt. Okay, so I have been out on sites for remediation and found that there were mistakes. Yes, sometimes they haven't fully remediated their plants, sometimes they haven't cleaned up their garbage. In the 3 years that I've been involved in this program, I have yet to find anything that would lead us to believe that there were any type of illegal pesticides or other contamination. Now, these are the sites that we've seen. Fair enough, but that also brings up the question, if there is a concern that we need to see the remaining sites, one, do we have evidence to suggest that we do need to go see it? And at this time, our office hasn't seen it. On the other hand, if there's still an overriding concern, your board may direct me in a later meeting to be proactive and go after these sites. We could discuss that. I have no objection to that. On the I believe it is the 26th of September, we'll be bringing you a cannabis presentation where we're going to update you on the program, make some recommendations for streamlining the program and increasing some restrictions in areas where we've seen that there are problems. We can include this item if you wish, and we can bring this forward to see if your board has an interest in doing proactive remediation of the remaining sites. At this time, your board has not given us that direction, and I can safely say that we have followed your direction to the letter, and we have the proof in our permit tracking to justify to anyone who wishes to have copies of that. Any questions? Come to my office.
I have a couple of questions. Al said when the grand jury did their inspection and had their interviews and so, he said that there wasn't a single copy of any soil being looked at, any water, any wells, or anything being looked at all. So some of the things that you just said, that if we see it, we'll do it. You're saying you've never seen anything on any of them, even the illegal grows, that would warrant any soil testing or any runoff water into a creek or any runoff water onto the property itself that may somehow possibly could be tested?
Well, speaking specifically for the licensed grows and the remediations that we did as a result of those applications, in my experience, we haven't seen anything that would trigger those testing requirements, which means we wouldn't have that information because we didn't see a reason to require it. There were no violations evident.
If I recall in the ordinance, when it was passed, there was well testing requirements prior and during the grows. I think one was immediately before they started growing, and then the first year, and then the fifth year, that there was a requirement in it to be tested.
That is correct. There's well testing, but it isn't for contaminants. It's for water recharge and for capacity.
So you're saying contaminants wasn't in that requirement?
Not to my understanding, no.
It wasn't taken out of it either. It just said well tested.
That's correct.
So the possibility of there could be some long-term contaminants filtering down into the groundwater, the possibility is maybe we should at least look at testing some of them randomly at some point for some contaminants and put some of this to bed. I'm in agreement with what Al is saying. There's still continuing going out there. If we can show that we've done some of this and there is or there isn't, then I think we have the opportunity. And again, it doesn't specifically say not to test for it. It just says well testing. So,
no, it is specific, actually. It's specific to drawdown, head height. It actually is somewhat specific on whether it's no, it is specific.
No, I'm not talking. You have the ability to talk whatever you want. I'm just trying to, the public, it doesn't specifically exclude it, though, is what I'm.
It doesn't exclude it, but doesn't include it. And typically, once again, innocent until proven guilty, we normally don't require an additional measure unless we see that there is a potential or evidence that there is an issue. So if your board wishes, I can add this to my presentation in September, and we can discuss this item and see if your board wishes to move forward with randomized testing for contaminants. But once again, that this is placing an item on an industry that's already the most strictly regulated industry in our county as far as agriculture similar. You know, we don't require contamination testing for the pesticides and everything used for corn or for alfalfa. If we're going to move forward with this, I would prefer that we can bring the board some form of evidence that we have a contamination concern in the county that needs to be mitigated. But like I said, your board can direct me to bring this forward in September. I'm happy to provide any information that we can find, and we can have a discussion. If your board wishes for me to do those contamination testing standards, we can put that together for you.
Chair Toffenelli, I just noticed that we need to make a correction on this item because the original presentation was scheduled for August, but it will now be in September. So I need to correct that in the response to the grand jury, that the presentation will take place in September.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, any other board comments? Yes. Supervisor Stopper.
I want to thank Mr. DeBasilio for coming up and clarifying what his part in it is, and also Mr. Oliver, because there's a stuff here that everyone's failing to measure or take into account. When the state put forward the state guidelines, Doug, this is part of the questions. That was the state guidelines for commercial cultivation. When it comes to legal grows, they also put forward a vast testing system for the actual item that gets sold on the market that has to go to a lab, and it tests for certain types of things. And then there's a list of allowable pesticides and allowable nutrients that are allowed to be used on those different sites that they have to abide by on each one of those. And with that, they have to follow those through the state. Now, that's not a requirement by us because the state's already has the list, and they're the ones that send in the lab testing, correct?
Yes, in addition to that, they do have to file for a pesticide license through our agricultural
And we have a
division.
list of what the pesticides are on hand through the environmental.
Correct, and the hardest part here is that they're not allowed to use any pesticides that are off-label. I can't, and the issue is almost no pesticides are tested for safe use on cannabis. So even your basic stuff you'd see on other agricultural sites, they cannot use on cannabis. What we have found in our experience that primarily they're using things like soybean oil and citric acid, which is vitamin C. I mean, it smells weird and they're spraying it, but the fact of the matter is it is only a hazard if it is concentrated and you get it on your skin, you could get a rash. Other than that, once it's dispersed, it's biodegradable and technically not considered even a pesticide.
It's strictly regulated.
Very strictly regulated.
Yeah, with that, to follow up, in the case of illegal grows, when your code compliance goes onto a site that actually has a search warrant that Mr. DeBasilio's alerted you to, when there is a worry about hazardous waste or things that are being used in an illegal situation, first of all, we deal with our hazmat. But also, there's you contact Fish and Wildlife, and you contact the EPA. And when it comes to stream contamination, the Fish and Wildlife, because I deal with this through the water agency, is the one that actually facilitates testing on any tributaries or creeks that may be partial runoff at that time. And they're the ones that are oversight on that and follow through with any type of liability when it comes to the landowner and.
Correct, and going further, the sheriff could probably speak better on this, but the way the regulations are written, it behooves us to find these violations because cultivating illegally is a misdemeanor, but there are 13 some odd enhancements that make it felonies. Using off-label pesticides is a felony. It makes the cultivation a felony. Killing wildlife on site, you have evidence of that. That's a felony now. If you have firearms on the site, it enhances it from a misdemeanor to a felony. So it behooves us to contact these agencies in order to enforce on these illegal grow sites. And our sheriff's office and our code compliance department or division have worked very, very closely in every one of these sites to capture every violation, because the way the ordinance is written, every violation of every ordinance code within the scope of a cultivation site is a violation of 1795. Goes directly to citation or can go directly to citation. And if you get a citation and it's upheld in the appeal process, you cannot grow. So it behooves the licensed growers to not violate anything on their sites, because when we find it, it could keep them from growing ever again.
Across the entire state, they lose their license.
In this
county, but the state law also says that if they lose it in this county, they could possibly lose any other possible license throughout the entire state at that time too.
Right. Unfortunately, I'm not, the rules are continuing to change, so I'm not entirely up to date on the state process. I focus on what we can do here.
Absolutely. But, these things we just talked about were concerns when I read the grand jury report that weren't partially included as for the whole, and I understand the concerns of the grand jury and I respect those. But, the whole picture in these different parts with fish and wildlife, the state law and everything else, were not included in that report.
I guess I just want to add, the long and short of it is the reason why there was no information to present is because it wasn't there, not that we weren't doing the job. In addition, no general fund money is going into this cannabis program. That's the other thing I want to point out. There may be a misunderstanding. Maybe that tax money is paying for it, and not the cannabis program and not our code compliance program. These are funded through the fees that we charge and the case management fees that we charge. So there's no tax on the general fund.
Supervisor Hovey?
Chair, I just wanted to ask, is it possible that we could postpone this response until after the presentation in September?
I think we have 90 days, and that would be September 22nd would be the 90th day. So I don't know when it's going to be presented to us. Is it before the 22nd?
I believe that September 21 is when the board's response is due to the presiding
So it's the
judge.
So we're not.
So prior to the presentation.
I would be in favor of that myself. Just look at some other things that are going on.
No, I'm sorry. To be clear, the response is due to the grand jury on September 21, and my understanding is that the presentation is scheduled for
the 26th.
After that.
I believe it's 26. It's the last meeting in September.
Well, apparently not. There's no way we could move that up to the first week in September, the first meeting in September.
I have no objection to that. Just we'll have to jump to and get a few things added.
So if our building official is able to make that first meeting in September, we certainly would have no objection to doing that, although the budget will be on that day as well.
I'm available if council is available.
I'm willing to put in the extra work in a day.
Okay, I am too. Jack? Okay, so we can move this to the first meeting in September and give us a chance to look a little bit more at some of these things. I do have some questions in the meantime that have come up that I think I need to address with Doug, maybe for the preparation.
I would just like to add that I'll be meeting with some of your constituents to get their concerns so we can maybe enhance that presentation a little bit.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I think if the board wants to move this item to a subsequent meeting,
You need a motion.
to move it to that meeting. Yeah.
I'm aware of that. Anything else you want to bring up?
No, sir.
No. Okay, so I'm open for a motion to move this to the first meeting in September.
Oh, so move.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Thank you, Doug.
Sir.
Didn't mean to put a little extra work on you, but hey.
All in goes with.
I want to do one thing before we move on to the next item. Al, I'm going to go back to number 5 real quick and let you at least make some comments if you wanted to make some comments on it. We didn't want to pull it and talk about it, but I will, if you want to make comments on item number 5.
Yeah, and a brief positive comment. We're directing environmental health people to test our streams. And if there are any contaminants, you can find out where.
This is on item 5, animal services.
Animal services.
Yeah, you said you wanted to have a discussion on it and we decided, but you still have a right if you want to make any comments on that report.
No, I concur with the report.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we'll move on to item number 7. This is the action item for administrative offices. Authorize the board chair to sign a response to June 19, 2023 grand jury report regarding Calaveras County Health and Human Services. And Teresa, you pulled this one?
I did. So I have a correction on this item. So on page 45 of the packet, in response to finding number 2, we had, the original response was the county disagrees with this finding. The mental health advisory board members are not volunteer personnel. And while that's true, this is an advisory board comprised of volunteers, county personnel, and elected officials, and we need to add that language.
And I would agree. Most of the public members are volunteers. They're appointed by the board, but they volunteer to fill out the application and are appointed. They do get no stipends or any money for their being on that board. So I'm in agreement on what Teresa had to say for the correction. Is there any board comments? Is there any public comments? Hearing none, I'll bring it. If you need a comment, you need to. Excuse me.
But it is, but because these are all responses to the grand jury report, and with all due respect, because, you know, you're the attorney, but the Penal Code 933C says, no later than 90 days after the grand jury submits its final report of the operations. Okay, the grand jury's report was filed on July 11th, and the sheriff, and the judge, Judge Healy, signed it on July 11th. You're a governing board, the Board of Supervisors, and it specifically states in the code section that you have 90 days from the date of its filing, which brings it into October. So because these are all under the responding to the grand jury report, I just found, you know, wanted to bring that to your attention.
Thank you.
You're saying we're being too expedient in our response? I did want to ask her that because, you know, it's all too often, Susan, if we waited to the last minute, you'll be asking us why we waited so.
No. I think, especially with the last one, and I know that's passed, but it maybe there's some considerations that that maybe you hadn't thought of. And, you know, I was kind of surprised because I thought you would read your responses or have people review responses, which you didn't do. You're not doing it, you said. Okay, so people in the audience may not have read it. And it's difficult then to hear you say, well, too bad, so sad, when we have time. So if a public brings something up, you have time to go back and at least consider it. That's all.
No worries.
Okay, well, we're on to item number 7, and yes, I'm looking for a motion, unless there's any other public comment on this item. Is there any online?
There is no online.
Okay, so I'm going to bring it back to the board. I'm open for a motion.
Before I make the motion, Susan, hear you, and very good point. I think we did take that in consideration with the last item, and we did extend that because were questions brought up. This one, there weren't any questions brought up, so at this time, I would like to make a motion as amended. But good point. Thanks.
Second.
I have a motion by Supervisor Stopper, second by Supervisor Garamendi. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Move on to item number 8, which is an action item for administrative office. Authorize the board chair to sign the responses to June 19, 2023 grand jury report regarding Calaveras Office of Emergency Services and Fire District. Al, you brought this one up. You have comments?
My comment was that it'd be good to read the response, even though it was published.
Is there any other public comments? Any online?
There are no online public comments.
Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board. Open for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Supervisor Garamendi, second by Supervisor Stopper. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. We'll move on to item number 10. This is agreement, code compliance, the approved agreement between Calaveras County and the Calaveras County Abandoned Vehicle Abatement Authority. I didn't know we had one of those, but apparently we do. to release funds to the county for purposes of contracting with Sam Berry Towing to tow AVA qualified abandoned vehicles in an amount not to exceed $40,000. The time period is July 1st, 2023 through June 30th, 2024, and 2, authorize the board chair to execute the vendor contract. Doug, you're up.
Good morning, me again. This is more of a correction than anything. I just want to bring your attention to items, I believe page 22. Let's see, 22, 23, that don't fit in this item. It was in the last revision when we posted this for your board. A couple of extra pages were scooped up that we just want to remove. And this is actually related to another item we'll be bringing you by October, which is a ballot initiative to maintain an existing fee that the DMV charges, which is a $1 fee on every vehicle that funds the AVA program. So the AVA program is a state program that we have formed joint powers with the city to manage. Our code compliance department or division goes out and tags abandoned vehicles of various sizes and shapes and removes them from our county roadways, from our from public land. If there's abandoned, public land, but privately owned land, things like that. If the vehicle shows up, nobody knows where it came from, it's not running, we can remove it for you. So we've been running this program for over 10 years. This item has to be brought back every 10 years as a ballot initiative. And we're a little overdue on this one because we weren't aware it had to be brought back in 10 years. So you'll be seeing that last board date in September or early October so we can get this on the ballot for November. But those 2 pages were not meant to be part of this agreement. So we're just asking that you approve this minus those 2 pages.
Is there any public comments on this item?
I'm not sure how this works, but I will tell you, I live in Angels Camp, and we had a vehicle abandoned in front of our house for, I think it was about 6 months. I could be wrong. When we called the local police department, they said, call the sheriff's office. I would tell the sheriff's office, and the reason is all kinds of strange people were coming, doing things to the car, throwing eggs, doing kinds of stuff. Coming knocking on my door wanting to buy the car. And it happened to be a very nice BMW. So it ended up being, a lot of people wanted it. So finally, I got a hold of the chief. So he said, okay, we'll come and deal with it. So they came and got it. Sam Berry came, they dealt with Sam Berry. I don't know if they got it or, yeah, I think they did. They towed it. And in the meantime, they said the same thing. We have no money. We don't have any money. And the sheriff's office told me, you ran out of funds. This was last year. You ran out of funds, so the cars just sit there abandoned. The neighbors were washing the car, so it didn't look so bad. So it was really drawing attention that we've never had in our neighborhoods. So I'm supportive somehow figuring out how this works between the county and the city. Not only that, but that we figure out a way to get Mr. Berry to get the cars out of the way. That's it.
Okay, I'll say it here, Gary, instead of there. I just don't understand if somebody abandons a car on bar 20, I just call the sheriff's office, they tag it, flag it, and hook it. Where does this dollar come from? Am I paying $1 right now? No, I'm not paying $1. The funding needs to come from the tax base. That I don't mind paying taxes for, because you know what? It looks bad, it causes blight, but where's this dollar? Who charged? I don't pay $1 for abandoned vehicle.
I believe when you register your vehicle, $1 from that registration fee goes to this.
I've never noticed that. I have 7 cars.
Then you're paying $7. Thank you.
Does it go to the county or does it go to San Berry?
Well, you pay your registration fees in the state of California.
But does it go to us? Does it go to Calaveras County?
Well,
Goes to state.
when it goes to the state, but then it's distributed for this program.
Oh.
But thank you for your $7. Is there any other public comments or questions? Is there any online?
There are no online public comments.
Okay, I will bring it back to the board.
So moved as amended, suggested by Mr. Oliver.
Second.
Motion by Supervisor Stopper, second by Supervisor Garamendi. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. And the final item on the consent is number 18. Oh, we got one more after that. I'm sorry, we do. We have one more. Amanda Pool 21. Agreement for integrated waste management, authorizing the board chair to execute a professional services agreement with Vito Trucking LLC for commercial hauling services for integrated waste management and not to exceed amount of $200,000 over 3 years for the term of July 1st, 2023 through June 30th, 2026. Bill, you pulled this item. You have questions?
Yes, I pulled the item. I have a question for you. In looking at past plans that we've had for solid waste, there's lots of different moving parts, companies, activities, things like that. So I don't remember seeing Vito Trucking being used before. And are they substituting for another truck line that's working for waste management, which goes to the dump, and are they taking it off-site? I mean, out of the county, or are they just taking it to our landfill? I thought the idea was to preserve our landfill for as long as possible. And that there was some indication when we went through this before that the board would be looking at different solutions. That's when you almost doubled the fee for solid waste. And that there's some expression of concern for senior citizens, people on fixed incomes coming from you, Mr. Stoffanetter, and I appreciate those comments. Has anyone looked at it? Have you taken it apart to see what can be done to make this less expensive so that maybe increases in fees can either be spread out over time, or are you taking all that money up front and spending it now? What are you going to spend it on? It doesn't look like there's anything different. This is still what I referred to before as Plan A. There was never a Plan B or a Plan C. We're back to Plan A again. And we're just going to be spending more money. And now once you start spending money on it, you say, well, we spent the money on it, we can't change it now. Is now the time to change course and look at a comprehensive program with other counties, with other corporations that are in the waste management business to say, here's the problem in Calaveras County. How can we solve it, and how much money is it going to take before you just start increasing fees? And maybe that can be spread out. Maybe there's some other way of doing it. But it's almost like the last issue. If you're not looking at it, you're not going to find the answer. And maybe someone should look at it. And there may be an answer out there that is more fair for the citizens, that works through the county, works for the county. And if we need to preserve cells and all the rest of that stuff, maybe that can be worked into it rather than just getting in the rocket sled and going down with Plan A again, but for twice as much money. Thank you.
I'm San Andreas, Taxpayer Association. I agree with the last speaker. We had a problem with the study that was hampered to only consider government operating the landfill. However, there are ways to do that could save the taxpayers money. I understand that there was a proposal, I don't know what the proposal was, from one of the providers of these services, and we should probably discuss that in an open forum and see if they had any limit, rather than just reject it without allowing it to be disclosed. I think that there's a potentiality of saving money by privatizing as much as possible. It doesn't mean you have to sell the landfill and you can lease it to a contractor that could operate it, but when you use tax money, you're not accountable because the people are trusting you with their money. And because of that, the comments about looking at all alternatives really do make sense for the taxpayer. Thank you.
Is there any other public comment? Is there any online?
There are no online public comments.
Jennifer, you want to have a few words for us, please?
Sure. Honorable members of the board, Jennifer Cashy, Director of Integrated Waste. Just a point of clarification, our Vito trucking contract is something that we have had in the past. This is not a new contract. This is not a waste hauling contract. This hauls our wood chips, and it serves our Wilseyville and Red Hill sites for our yard waste. So after our yard waste is chipped, we then haul it to Rock Creek. So that is what this contract is for.
Thank you. Supervisor Stopper?
Yeah, that's what this item is about too.
That is correct.
Thank you. With that, I'll make a motion.
All right, I brought it back to the board. I have a motion by Supervisor Stopper, second by Supervisor Hubbard. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. Move on to item number 21. Amanda pulled this item. It's an agreement with Public Works, award request for proposal for 22-1200-33-925, and 2, authorize the board chair to execute an agreement for construction management of the roadway safety signage audit project, HSIPL 5930-095, and guardrail upgrades project at HSIPL 5930-094 with Consor North American Incorporated in an amount not to exceed $428,959.25. And we can't exclude the 25 cents. Okay. Kelly, you're up.
My only,
Amanda pulled it, I'm sorry.
my question is, this is just for existing guardrails. I just wanted clarification from the staff report. So I'm reading it correctly, it's existing, not anything that has changed since the adoption of the 2021 program, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there any public comment on this item? Safety item? No, is there any online?
There are no online public comments.
All right, I'll bring it back to the board. I'm open for a motion for item number 21.
Move.
It was motion by Supervisor Follendorf. Second. Second by Supervisor Stopper. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. We're going to take a 5-minute break. I've been asked to do so. Okay, we're going to move back into our regular agenda. Next item on the agenda is an action item from the administrative office to adopt a statement denouncing anti-Semitic materials distributed in Calaveras County. And I will move to Teresa for comment.
Good morning, Chairman Toffenelli, members of the board. At the July 25th, 2023 Board of Supervisors meeting, concern was brought up over anti-Semitic materials that had been distributed throughout Calaveras County. And Sarah and I were directed to bring back a statement. As we were drafting this, we were thinking about all the things that we believe make this a great county to live in. And some of those things are the inclusivity that we feel that all citizens have towards each other. So with that, we drafted the statement regarding those materials and the board's position. So I will turn it over to you.
Thank you. Sarah, do you have anything to say before we, okay. I'm going to read the statement, and then I'll open it up to public comments, and then I'll bring it back to the board for their comments, if any, and a motion. So, the following statement. The Calaveras County Board of Supervisors supports and celebrates diversity in our county and an inclusive environment for all its residents and visitors. We are committed to fostering a spirit of community and connectedness for all Calaveras County residents. Our mission to serve, support, and strengthen our communities and our vision as a prosperous rural environment with unlimited opportunities are both predicted on our core values of integrity, service, people, and sense of community. Our board is appalled by the anti-Semitic materials recently distributed in the county, which stand in stark opposition to our goal of creating an atmosphere of inclusion and respect for everyone living or visiting our beautiful county. It is unfortunate that people who have been afflicted by prejudice and bigotry feel the need to spread hate and intolerance. In the words of American poet Audre Lorde, it is not our differences that divide us, it is our inability to recognize, accept, and celebrate those differences. We, as your elected representatives, know through experience that acceptance and tolerance of the differences that make us unique creates a stronger and more resilient community. We will continue to nurture the deep sense of community and belonging that has long been the culture of this Calaveras County by supporting inclusion for all. Are there any public comments?
Vicki Rinke, I just want to say thank you.
Any other public comments?
As the County Taxpayer Association, I haven't read this anti-Semitic literature, and so it's pretty hard to comment on it. But this doesn't, something about this doesn't seem to be normal and rational. Tremendous amount of publicity is coming upon us, and the publicity seems to be promoting more community-oriented approaches rather than the constitutional approaches. And I think that if we have, maybe this should be studied a little bit further and find out what the motivations behind this brochure really is. I don't think it's to promote anti-Semitism. It appears more to be a false flag type thing. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Seeing none in the room, is there any online?
There are no online public comments.
Okay, I'll bring it back to the board. Is there any board comments on this item?
Yeah, first off, Al, you should read it before you comment on it, because this was disgusting material that was put out. And I'm proud of our board for making a stand quickly and decisively with great clarity. This is not acceptable in our community. So, thank you, board.
Is that a motion?
And I'll turn on the motion. Thank you.
I'll second.
Supervisor Stop, you have a comment?
Yeah, just a comment. I'll cede the second to Mr. Huberty, but I couldn't agree with Mr. Garamendi more about this. I want to thank staff for bringing forward a straightforward, community-oriented, inclusive message like they have for us to put out, and I just want to thank the rest of the board coming up to this point and for whatever your vote is at the end.
And I agree. I agree. Thank you. Mr. Huberty. Supervisor Huberty, you have a second. So I have a motion by Supervisor Garamendi, a second by Supervisor Huberty. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. We will move on to the next item on the agenda. This is an informational item of economic community development. Receive a presentation on the 2023 through 2020.
I think
Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry. I skipped 25, just because. It was a great presentation, guys. I appreciate it. You're welcome. Sorry it was so fast. It's an informational item from OES to receive your presentation regarding the tree mortality project.
Mine's not. Oh, yes. Apologies. Good morning, Honorable
Good
Board.
morning.
Mr. Chairman, I'm Mike Masoni. I'm the Director of Office of Emergency Services. I'm joined today by Tad Mason, our tree mortality project consultant. At Board's direction, we were asked to provide you with an update on the tree mortality program here in Calaveras. And I can tell you in my short tenure here and drinking from a fire hose, I've been brought up to speed immensely by Mr. Mason and his group. The amount of work that's been done on this project and continues to be ongoing is amazing, incredible, great work. I apologize for my casual attire, but I'm going to attend a site visit today to Project 41, tromp around in the woods and see the work that's being done on behalf of this program. So with that, I'll turn it over to Tad and TSS consultants.
Great. Thank you, Mike, for that introduction. Good morning, Chair Toffanelli and board members. We are going to the woods after this presentation, and at some point, any board members interested going to the woods, we're happy to take you out and show you what we're up to. Since September of 2017, 6 years, we have treated almost 12,000 dead and dying trees, removed along county roads that are potential hazard, not just from a fire hazard, but from a public safety hazard. All of these projects have been implemented without any damage to property or any issues like that, no worker injuries, which is really important, of course. The workforce stays safe. Total cost is approaching $6 million over that 6-year period. Of that, the state provided $5.7 million matching dollars. And on top of that, there was a grant from the Bureau of Land Management, BLM, for $88,000. Bottom line, the out-of-pocket costs through September of last year, it came to about $214,000, or about $18 a tree back to the county. And we have a slide, we'll show that spreadsheet that demonstrates where the money went and where it came from. So Cal OES arrangement today is the state matches at 75% of the cost. And then on top of that, there's a 10% coverage for admin. Total match is about 83% bottom line. And that's what got us to the $18 a tree. Okay. So going on to the next slide. The way the program works, of course, we have foresters that work for me out in the field, and once they do their surveys along roads, we send a right of entry form to the landowner, if it's a private landowner, and get permission to go onto the property, do a full assessment, and if indeed the tree needs to come out, we mark those trees. The trees are put up into projects, and then the projects working through the county OES, we float a invitation to bid, and then a contractor is selected, typically the low price leader, and then we go out and drop the trees. Basically remove the trees and treat the slash so that it's very little issue with fuels left on site. So the program really is focused on public safety because we're along county roads. We're removing trees that could drop onto the road. The tree must qualify as being within a tree's length of the road for it to be part of this program. Not only is it public safety though, but it's also wildfire hazard mitigation. Most of the areas we're working in are in the WUI, the wildland-urban interface. In addition to all this, of course, private property owners are relieved of potential hazards of liability. Those trees on their property that could go into the road are definitely a liability to them as well. In the absence of this program, the program did not exist, then County Public Works, I would imagine, would be facing removal of these trees on a case-by-case basis, and the cost component could be different. Next slide. Planned projects. Good, thank you. So the program's been on hold since May. There's been a concern about how the budget's being allocated to this, and hopefully we can field some questions today to address that. But right now we have 7 projects in play. And the map on the next page, we'll show that in a minute, shows the location of all those projects. To date, so far in 2023, we have 618 trees marked for removal. We expect maybe to have 1,000 or 1,000 plus trees this year total if the program is reinstated. Of the projects, Project 41 is on U.S. Forest Service managed lands. Because of a Good Neighbor Authority agreement that we worked through with the Stanislaus National Forest, along with $187,500 match by the Forest Service, this project is at no cost whatsoever to the county. We are implementing that now, and that's what we'll be going to the field to look at is Project 41. So being the 200 trees, a little over 200 trees are on Project 41, we have another 800 to remove. The total cost to the county based on past $500 per tree cost comes to about $400,000. After the state match, the total cost would be about $70,000. Okay. One thing that we do need to account for, though, that I have yet to come up with a forecast for is the fact that the projects now are prevailing wage. That was a change that was made this year. And so there may be a little more cost involved because we're going prevailing wage. Next slide is the map. So you can see that we're covering most of the county. In the tan color, you've got Project 41, which is Forest Service, covers a lot of acres. And then the other projects you can see they're numbered there, including the Butte Fire. We'll be talking about that here in a minute. But all the tree counts are also listed on this map. You can see we've got 264 for Project 41, 84 for 42, et cetera, et cetera. Some of the projects we just have estimates because we were put on hold in May, so we haven't marked those projects as yet. But those are our best guess estimate so far. Next slide. We talked about Project 41. Really what we're doing here is, again, public safety, addressing the mortality situation on federal lands, covered at 100%. In the future, because of the Good Neighbor Authority agreement and the project-specific analysis, the PSA that we put together, there is the possibility of a shaded fuel break along these lands as well. I think that's something to consider. We know that there is federal funding out there, and we possibly could use the balance of the $187,500 matched by the Forest Service to start that shaded fuel break. Project 42 is up at Sky High Ranch. This takes into account Sherman Oaks and Tamarack. Estimated cost is about $42,000, of which reimbursement is $34,600. All trees on residential lots will eliminate the hazards up there, both fire and public safety. Project 43 is within the Butte Fire perimeter. These are trees that were not taken out by the fire, but really taken out by beetles and drought. We're looking at about $13,000 cost, of which $10,700 would be reimbursed. Removing these trees will complement the RCD planned fuel break up in that area. Project 44, Big Trees Village, estimated cost $75,000. Reimbursement, a little over $61,000. This will complement defensible space efforts and the SBI fuel break up in the Big Trees Village area. Project 45, Arnold area and Blue Lake Springs. Thank you. This will cost around $122,000, reimbursement a little over $100,000, and it will complement U.S. Forest Service and SBI fuel breaks up in that area along Arnold Avery, in the Arnold Avery area, and Love Creek Road. Project 46, Murphy's Sheep Ranch, estimated cost about $18,000, reimbursement $14,800. Tree removals will be conducted along Pennsylvania Gulch Road and complement the Murphy's to Forest Meadows fuel break. West Point Wilseyville, estimated cost $25,500. Reimbursement a little over $21,000. This will complement 3 BLM fuel breaks by removing trees that have died since the fuel breaks were completed. In sum, all projects but 41 are really focused on the wildland urban interface, as I mentioned earlier, and will improve public safety and complement fire hazard reduction. A related public safety issue has come up recently, and that's with PG&E. They've announced the curtailment of the Enhanced Vegetation Management Program. This was featured in the Wall Street Journal August 3rd edition, and that is a concern. Yes?
They just refiled yesterday. That article was pretty out of date.
Okay. It was also featured on Sacramento Public Radio this morning.
It was just refiled yesterday.
Yeah. So when you say refiled, what?
Means the Fire Safety Council, whoever that new board is, didn't accept what they had done as far as that curtailment.
Ah, good. Okay. Good. Next slide is the spreadsheet. So this is the summary workbook that we put together working with OES every quarter. And this has not changed since September through Project 40. That was the last project that we implemented. So this basically summarizes the investment the county's made, and along with all of the reimbursements. And then last slide, this is just an image of the BLM mortality that we've been seeing out in the county. And with that, we're open to questions.
Are there any board questions? Supervisor Hubbard?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the presentation. Could I ask, how do you mark the tree? What does it look like when you mark it?
We have paint, we have tree paint, and we basically put onto the tree CC for Calaveras County, and then a tree number. And then that tree number is inputted on a iPad for the tree list, and the diameter, the type of species, the height, approximate height is all categorized. So we have.
And of the total number of trees, how many do you project are in your Project 41 area?
We have 264 trees marked so far in Project 41.
And I'll ditch the coat and put my boots on. I'd love to join you guys this afternoon.
And we'll put a paint can in your hand, Supervisor, to mark the trees.
Thank you. I have just to let the board know, I have a lot of constituents who are very concerned about this. I do feel it's important we figure out a way of getting rid of these trees. Any fuel that we can reduce in our area, it's well worth it.
And the trees are still dying. We also do work in Amador County, very similar program in Amador County. And so far this year, we've marked over 2,000 trees. So while it may have been a wet winter, this past winter, of course, for a variety of reasons, we're still seeing trees die, unfortunately.
Thank you.
Be careful with a paint can in his hand. Not only maybe the trees, other things, but.
Thank you for the warning.
Amanda, you have?
Well, just thank you for breaking these numbers out. I think the last time this was in front of the board, the cost that's on that last slide of $503.50 per tree, it wasn't broken down and explained that really the real cost and investment of the county was $18 a tree. And that nexus wasn't clarified in the past. And it was, that total was starting to really, at least for me, concern what the true investment or return investment the county was getting on this. So thank you for breaking it out in this presentation. It makes me feel a lot better.
I do have a question. On your slides, the project specifics, on those slides, the slides that you showed, the numbers are different than what was given to us.
I can.
So, and what we're seeing here on our, what was given to us is what the public saw, because that's what was posted, and now the numbers are changed. I'm just wondering why they were changed, if these are estimates. They seem to have gone down.
Which slide are you, specific, project specifics or to the table?
Yeah, I think it starts at like project 44. Those numbers aren't the same as I have here. And 43 aren't the same, 46, excuse me, 44, 45, 46, 47, none of the numbers are the same.
And I apologize for that. We were just given the updated PowerPoint this morning. From that, we updated it through.
Can we repost these new numbers so the public, once you check in, they have the numbers that were presented to us?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. All right, any public comments or questions on this item? All right, please keep an eye on the timer.
I have a question about replant. I know we're wiping out some trees that need to go for safety, public safety. Is there anybody replanting? Are we replanting with the Forest Service? Or no?
Reforestation is not part of our scope of work.
Okay.
However, I can tell you in many cases here in Calaveras County, we actually have overstocked conditions in our forest ecosystems, as in too many trees per acre.
Okay.
So I don't think reforestation is an issue.
Okay, thank you.
Tad, can we go ahead, you're fine. Can we just write down the questions and then have everybody speak and at the end answer the question?
Oh, I see, yeah.
Okay, all right.
Good morning, Board. My name is Tim Tate. I'm the Vice President of the Calaveras Foothills Fire Safe Council. I'm also the Southern Area Manager of Timberlands for Sierra Pacific Industries, and I'm a registered professional forester, and I have been for the last 41 years working and operating in Calaveras County. I'd like to urge you to continue funding this program and get it going again as quickly as possible, both from a forest health standpoint. As Tad mentioned, we can't be fooled by the great winter that we had, the increase in moisture, the subsidence of the tree mortality, because it will be back. And besides that, there's a certain number of trees that die every year as the beetles just carry on at an endemic level. Once you become conscious of this, you driving around the county, my wife and I were driving from Sheep Ranch to Murphy's the other day. There's a big pine snag hanging right over the road, and you almost hold your breath when you drive under these things. And there's another one when you're traveling from here to Jackson, as you're winding down to the river, look on your right, there's a big pine tree hanging right over the highway. And it's just a matter of time before these things come down. And it's, I've seen in my career several instances where people are just in exactly the wrong place at the wrong time, and one of these trees comes down, hits their car, and kills them. And it's, there's no amount of money saved that's worth letting a risk like that go on. It's just, particularly when you're talking about $18 a tree, that's the biggest bargain I can think of as a cost to the county. So from a public safety standpoint, I'd urge you to carry on with the program. And if you think too, what can happen in an emergency situation with an ambulance or first responders, fires and so forth, one of those trees comes down right before they want to go through that area, you got a big mess and a big delay on your hands. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Lynn Stutz. I live up in Tamarack, TCC's District 40, Project 42. My home is in a portion of Tamarack called Tamarack Springs. There are other members of our community here today, both in person and by Zoom. Our area is separated from the highway by a small road, a county road. That is our primary access. Our secondary access, if it even qualifies as that, is a narrow, deeply rutted dirt and gravel tract. I don't think it's wide enough for a fire truck to go through, but both sides of the road are just stacked up with fuel, ready to go. So if you ignore that and look only at the county road, then we have a slightly broader road. It's paved, but it is lined on both sides with dead trees. A number of them have already been marked for the program. Therefore, they're already identified as a danger to us. The danger of them falling at any time is real, but the scary thing, for me at least, is that if they fall when there's a fire, the fire trucks won't be able to get to us. We in our community have spent a huge amount of time, energy, money, making sure that we have a defensible space. But that's defensible, not it's not going to protect us unless the defenders can get there. And if the fire trucks can't come in, our homes are probably gone. More importantly, if a fire comes anywhere near the highway end of that road, we don't have a way to get out. $18 a tree versus the lives that will be lost up there. In the 1991 Oakland Hills fire, 25 people died, over 150 were injured, and the primary cause of all that was insufficient egress from the fire area because the roads were narrow and banked by highly flammable trees. That's a perfect description of the road to our home. So I ask you, please find the funding to protect our homes. It's the one thing you could do that may make our houses survive and may let us survive. Thank you.
Once again. Good work on what you do preventing hazards along the roadways. I had the opportunity years ago with the chamber to attend a lecture from the timber industry. And the issue was even age harvesting. Apparently, according to the industry at that time, it's very important that the trees be spaced so that they don't use the water that's available, but also don't have a lot of fuels where you have dead trees that the fire can very quickly kill good trees. And so the question we have is tree spacing part of your program? Thank you.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Mike Johnson, Evans Pass Fire District. Good to see the board this morning. Yeah, the comments I have are, from a layman's perspective, I really assume that super cold, wet winter made this go away. And honestly, we're seeing it make a resurgence. We're having people come back to the fire district looking for applications, for the county program or even the PG&E program. And I just wanted to come here and make sure that you knew from a local's perspective up in that area that this program is so valuable for the community members to protect also the county infrastructure and the roadways and whatnot. So I'm glad to hear this, and hopefully this continues on. We also have Joan Lark here. Joan, you want to share anything?
Yeah. I'm Joan Lark, Prevention Officer at Evans Pass Fire District, and I'm the one who goes out and checks unimproved lots for excess fire fuel. This program has been absolutely fantastic for our area. We had so many dead trees due to the drought and also the bark beetle. And not only has it reduced the fire fuel, it has also helped the county in the fact that there haven't been the trees that have fallen, and it definitely has helped the homeowners. And so we definitely hope that you will find the funds to keep this program going. It's well worthwhile. Thank you.
Good morning, members of the Board of Supervisors. Thank you for taking time with this issue. I'm Marty Woverett. I have a vacation home in Tamarack. It's been up there quite a long time, since the 60s. I wanted to just paint a picture. We're not totally dependent on county resources for this. The work of Ms. Lark and the Ebbets Pass Fire District has been a great motivator. And we're spending thousands and thousands. I'm hoping Joe's Tree Service starts a frequent flyer program so we can get a little discount. But we're spending a lot of private resources to protect our homes where we have the ability to protect our homes. But the vast majority of the trees that have been marked are on private property. I don't want to cast aspersions, but the concern by private owners falls unevenly. Some don't have the resources, some don't pay attention. But we can't cut these trees, but you can, and please make an effort. Thank you.
Any other public comments? Are there any online?
Yes, we have Craig Burton. Craig?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm speaking on behalf of HOA here in townhouses. So I'm going to read something in this drafted. Calaveras County Supervisors. HOAs is a tree monitoring program should share in the county's requirement of 20% matching program. The matching requirement was determined by the board. Low-income residents will be exempt from matching requirements. We understand the possible motivations for suspension of the program is the matching requirement of 20%. It's a very small HOA. Resources are facing difficulty with the board faces. We need both the county manager using the discretionary programs. The tree moratorium program falling into the discretionary category. To that end, we believe the long-term return on investments in the program provides the citizens of the county potentially involving wildfire managers. We should be willing to assist the county in its program. Again, we urge to reinstate the tree moratorium program. Failing to do so will result in a fair greater cost to residents in the county. So our HOA willing to contribute 20% of the tree removals on an annual basis. Thank you.
Other public comments online?
There are no further public comments online.
Okay. I will close public comments and bring it back to the board. This is an informational item. Is there any other questions that we need to ask? Chuck?
Thank you. First off, as you're all aware, for the last 6 years, I've been a big proponent of this program. But I think that one of the things that happens is we get public comment and suddenly bad information becomes public information and that becomes the truth. I think what we need to acknowledge is that we had a great run at $18 a tree. We had 94% reimbursement between state and federal dollars, right? About 6%, roughly 6.25. And now we're in a situation where we're going to be required to pay 25% of those dollars. Am I wrong? It was in your presentation. Can you tell me what our percentage we have to pay is?
83%. The state provides 83% of the cost.
Okay.
So the match would be 17%.
17%.
Yeah.
17% of a price because of prevailing wage requirements that we're having a hard time identifying, correct?
We don't know what prevailing wage will bring. We've only had one project bid at prevailing wage. We're not a fan of prevailing wage, but it happened.
It's the law.
We're stuck with it. We don't know what it's going to cost.
So no. Right. You don't know how much money you have somewhere between $68,000 and $72,000, but that's at best a guess, correct?
Based on the historic costs, yes.
How many of these trees that we've combed this county at least twice, looking for trees, how many of the trees that are currently on the list were on prior lists? And perhaps were not cut because of right of entry or other obstacles?
Very few. Very few. So I can't give you a percentage, Supervisor, but I can.
Because I'd like to know that in a subdivision, Blue Lake Springs or some, refuse a right of entry, and yet we're counting them again, and are we expecting them to allow us to have entry this time? So these are, what I'm trying to find out is how much money you're actually asking for here for the program. And some things I think we should pay for. Certainly the National Forest Service contract, which is 100%, that's a no-brainer. If HOA commits and puts a check forward, hey, that's a different story too. But if we're asking to count trees that may have already been on the list and weren't taken down because of owner negligence or lack of response, I don't want to pay for that. And so I would like some firmer numbers on what exactly we're asking for, because I got the sheriff coming up here and telling me that Armageddon's happening if we don't find money. I've got animal services sending me emails. It's all one pot of money. So we have to make hard choices. So I just want to know how this all balances. Thank you.
Right.
Question, comment? I do. The numbers that you were given to us here on project specifics, what, is that based on the old numbers?
Yes.
So it's not prevailing wage numbers, so those numbers.
So the prevailing wage situation is such that when the invitation to bid is issued, the contractors bid into it and they claim that they're paying prevailing wages. So we haven't seen only but one project on that prevailing wage side. There was a slight increase in cost, not much. The question is with projects 42, 43, all the way through 47, where's the prevailing wage? How's that going to weigh in? We just don't know.
Okay, because when it comes to prevailing wages, the contractor has a lot of work to do to prove that he's paid his employees prevailing wage. It's got to be certified payroll and a whole lot of other things involved in it. So it's not just paying the employee. There's a lot of things that cost behind it. Right. So that's why I'm wondering about these numbers. So we will be doing budget coming up in September. I think it's on the 22nd or 26th.
It's the first meeting in September.
The first meeting in September. So, Mike, if you could have some numbers, maybe try and solidify these numbers a little bit more so we actually know pretty close to what it's going to cost us, including that prevailing wage. I'd be really interested in hearing if you have updates at that time you can present to us.
Yeah, no, absolutely, sir. These numbers now are forecasted from the previous tree counts, projects rather, and we'll look at some anecdotal data and then try to provide the best numbers to you based on our forecast.
Can I ask a question? Yeah. Okay. Where is the status of all the CAL FIRE reimbursements going forward too with the state budget? So we're talking now about, kind of the past, but going forward, are there any concerns that we need to have with the CAL FIRE reimbursement with the state budget on these projects? Because that's a big factor into this contribute, and I am happy with, the 18, don't get me wrong, but I'm concerned what that future looks like as the state budget start to less invest into the communities to support these types of programs.
Yeah, great question. We're in partnership with the Fire Safe Council as well. We're pursuing all opportunities and grants. In fact, we're reaching out to PG&E as well to see if there's opportunities to collaborate with them. On the specific grants, we just learned yesterday that the OES grant was approved in the $169,000. I think that's kind of was languishing out there. That was approved in the checks in the mail, but that was approved as of yesterday. So we continue to look for opportunities. We continue to close out monies that's been kind of hanging out there on some things, and we'll continue to work with partners to decrease the drain on the county.
Teresa wanted to say something.
So I just wanted to let the board know that our fiscal team is currently working on updated numbers. We do have some costs based on the bids of Project 41, and the cost per tree for the county is ranging from $122 to $592 per tree, depending on the location and size of the tree. So we will, when we bring this back at final budget, we'll have more concrete numbers for the board to consider. And hopefully, if we get some additional grant funding that would, Project 41 is 100% funded. We're just looking if we didn't have the 100% funding for that project, what the county's cost share would be. So, but hopefully if we can find some additional funding, then we could make some of these other projects happen as well. Or your board could consider on a project by project basis, depending on the location and danger to the public for those projects.
And that was going to be my next question to you, is if there's funding, if it's now based off of these grant cycle funding, when this comes back again, consider, and I'm not picking, so sorry, any one particular, but just hypothetically, Project 47, if that grant match is a lot more higher than that 17%, and the county has to up it to say 30%, will we start considering more of let's go down the grant application route before we put that match, given the changes with the CAL FIRE reimbursement at the state. But I would be open more to that. I don't want to completely shut this down, but I want to be conscientious of the changes that are coming. This is still a lot less cost than what private property owners are currently paying for tree services, even at these $500 a tree, when it's probably $5,000 to $10,000 a tree. But I want to be conscientious of the other needs that we as board members have to be aware of as we're trying to do these budgets coming up. But I just want to make it, I don't want to see these die, but I don't want to be just handing a check over if we're not doing the work to help supplement it, so we can fund the other items that we've got to consider.
Could not agree more.
And then Chad, was there a couple of questions that you might public ask that you want to speak to?
Al had a question on tree spacing and ladder fuels. And, if we were to proceed with Project 41 Forest Service at a later date, come back to that project area and put in a shaded fuel break, we would indeed be looking at tree spacing to mitigate wildfire behavior. So that goes along with treating ladder fuels. So good question now. As far as forecasting the cost per tree, the real wild card for us is this prevailing wage, which I'm not a fan of, and I didn't call for it, but someone else did. So we're stuck with it. So what's that?
It's the law.
See, we're not doing it in other counties, but there's no need to cover that here. We're doing prevailing wage here. So I'll do my best to forecast that, working with the director here, and hopefully those numbers can be delivered in September, based on our best estimates. But we're going into new territory with prevailing wage.
Thank you. Any questions from Martin?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, actually, Teresa, could I ask you what it would cost the county for a felled tree, just out of curiosity, to clean up a tree that's fallen? I'd love to know what that costs.
So we can look into that and get estimates from our Public Works Department. I'm sure they deal with that on a regular basis.
Thank you. And also, I wanted to ask you guys, in the marking of the tree, is there a priority of how you mark the trees? So if we weren't able to do all of the trees in a said project area, could we get to a few of the really more?
If the tree is dead or dying, it's marked, and there is no coarse filter used to rank. It's just it's a hazard, so it's coming out. I supposed if there was some sort of ranking program that was of interest, we can consider that. Absolutely, we work for you. But at this point, we don't rank the trees. We just mark them if they're dead or dying.
Great, thank you.
I have one other question. You say the trees that are marked have to be within the length of them the height of them from the road.
Striking the road. Yes.
Yeah, so if they fell, they'd be obstructing the road. So what if you have a tree that may be a little bit further from the road, but there's a tree in front of it? So if it fell, it would knock that tree over and that tree would end up on the road.
You've got me worried, Chairman. You know, we don't play the domino game, really. Yeah. We try to adhere very strictly to, you know, within tree length of the road to be compliant with state OES.
All right, thank you. Yes, Supervisor Stafford.
Thank you, Chairman Toffenelli. You know, a lot of things that come up here. You know, the realization that this is beneficial. It does protect a lot of areas. You know, and it's not something that I want to see go away, but as a representative of a district that receives no benefit from this, moving forward, we need to be pragmatic. I will support doing this type of thing, but it's to stretch the dollar the farthest. It's brought up by at least 2 to 3 supervisors here about prevailing wage. Working in construction in the past, there's contractors that will not qualify to be able to do these things because they can't supply what Mr. Toffenelli said about, you know, finances and everything else and be able to do, and insurance even for prevailing wage.
You have to register with the state to.
Yeah, it's right. And it's been beneficial for us that we've been able to fly the way we have for so long because we've been able to receive bids from local contractors actually, and that are legitimately priced to the point where we can take them and keep the money inside the county, which is beneficial because more often than not, some of the money would end up going out of the county for these type of things. But, you know, the tentative cost, you talked about the past. We already talked about that. I don't want to beat a dead horse about it, but the actuals, the costs today and tomorrow are ones I want to see. You know, we can talk about how well we did in the past. That's not reality today. So, you know, my decision will be based on us being pragmatic, stretching that dollar the farthest. And if it's a project that's going to cost the county a little too much in certain situations, I'll be a no, you know, because we can benefit in other areas. Safety overall spreads still on many different fingers of the hand. So we got to see how we can best cover the county in its entirety. That's where I'm at.
And to Ben's point, I think the changes at the state, I mean, we're not going to be the only place impacted. It's going to be happening across the state with smaller cities, counties, you know, jurisdictions that are having to maneuver the changes with the state law, expectations from the state, and them not, you know, unfortunately recognizing that the existing programs that are in place have been very helpful, but now, you know, it's getting passed on, and some of the local jurisdictions just don't have the population tax base to support this 100%. And we need to get creative in figuring out how to continue to support it without cutting off the other services that are expected, as they were earlier mentioned at the board meeting during public comment.
I agree with Ben and Amanda. I'd like to see, I think we need to stretch our dollars as far as possible. I agree with Amanda. I'm concerned about what's going to come down from the state. They like to give you a little taste of money and then they'll take it back. And then we're the ones who get to cancel the program. Thank you very much. So I think there's really something to be concerned. And in my view, this is all public safety, right? We're doing this for public safety, but I got other things that need public safety dollars too. So we have to find the balance. Thank you.
Okay, with no other questions, thank you, and we'll see you in September.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda, I have a time of 45 minutes. It's 20 minutes to 12. Does the board want to go forward with this or take lunch?
I think
It's not the last item on the agenda, so. Martin, where are you? You want to go forward or go to lunch and come back?
I'll do whatever, Jack wants to do.
So now you tell me.
Jack, what to do?
Yeah, it is. When were you? Jim, we're doing budget, Mark. Mr. Chair, I have to depart at lunchtime as a representative of this board to Golden State Connect Authority. I'm chairman of it. I thought that this meeting was going to end by noon, but I have to chair a meeting in Sacramento at 2:00. So whichever way you want to go, I regret that, as my duty to the board requires me to depart. So.
Supervisor Fallendorf.
I'm fine if we can get a couple more votes out of Jack before he leaves.
40 minutes.
Okay, we will move on to the next item, and then we'll go through with it. This is receive your presentation of 2023-2028 Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy for Calaveras County and seek input and direction for priority projects. Martin's gone to lunch.
Just didn't want Joan to leave without giving her a note.
And we'll give you a couple minutes to set up, Kathy. Okay, we have a change. We are going to do item number 28 next, and then we'll come back to 25. Excuse me, 26. Why am I at 25? So we are going to do item number 28. This is the ordinance for building. Find an example from CEQA, conduct a public hearing, and amend the ordinance chapter 3.53 Building Department Service Fees, make a public benefit finding, and authorize summary publication of ordinance. And I will open the public hearing. And Doug, you're up.
Good morning. Again, Chairman, members of the board.
You're pretty popular today.
Yeah. Doug Oliver, Chief Building Official. This is the second reading of the user fee ordinance that we brought before your board on the 25th of July. Your board did make one request for a change, and we're bringing this forward to let you know that the change has been made and give you a little explanation as to why before we ask for your vote and your seal of approval. Specifically, the fee for the mandated fire inspection that was requested to be waived or removed, and in order to be the most efficient, our department elected to simply remove the fee. So it's not in here anymore. If you're looking at 3.53010B1 state mandated inspections, you will note that there is no school fee there anymore. Now, that doesn't in any way waive the requirement for the inspection. This is mandated by the state, so we're still performing it. But rather than put the fee in and then have a separate statement that the fee has been waived by the board, it seemed more efficient to just eliminate it so that we eliminate, the question as to will it come back later. I mean, if your board decides later that there is a need, we suddenly have 15 more schools that need to be inspected and we have to fund that position, and maybe we can bring it back, but I don't anticipate it being a significant budgetary issue for our department. So it is no longer there, and if your board so wishes, we would recommend you adopt this ordinance.
Is there any board comments? Supervisor Fallendorf.
I talked to the CEO about this. I'm not against waiving the fees. I 100% support that. My only concern is completely removing it out of the ordinance if we were questioned on a public finding benefit for the fee waiver, when we're charging other commercial and other businesses a mandated fee. And so I just want to make sure that we run the risk of those, of that. That's all. Otherwise, I I'm fine with it being waived for the school districts, but I just had a concern about the public finding and potential issues in the future. Challenges.
I think that, and council can back me up here, but in the long and short, the state regulations make it clear that we can charge a fee, not that we're required to charge a fee. So if we were to go backwards and say we're just not going to charge that fee, it's not really a public benefit. It's just simply not following through on something the state is allowing us to do.
And also, Supervisor Fondorf, the staff report does include some, findings that in terms of the board's rationale in not charging those fees, and that there is a public benefit to providing these services.
Okay, this matter, I just don't want it to come back and bite us, because I've seen that happen before. That's all.
Very good, thank you.
Any board questions, comments? Any public comments, questions on this item? Are there, Al?
Al Scanlon, Taxpayer Association. Problem we have is we call it workforce housing, which means really that it's too expensive to build in our county. Part of the reason it's too expensive to build is unnecessary regulations. One particular regulation is bone crushing, and that's requiring fire extinguishers in home construction. These commercial type sprinklers, if they go off, they just destroy all the furniture and carpeting, and they do much more damage than a little bit of possibility of saving lives in a fire. There are better fire extinguishers available. They're ignored right now, but it's not enough to be continued to be ignored. And these are head-on type fire extinguishers. They're used in aircraft and places where there's electronics because it's not harmful for human beings. It doesn't deprive you of oxygen, but it puts out the fire. The gas fire extinguishers put out the fire without damaging human beings or damaging the environment. That makes sense. And the numbers to install those should be a dramatic reduction in expense. So we have a fire extinguisher now, or maybe a fire detector. It could be also a human extinguisher. So I think that this should be looked into, and maybe a special committee to not only look at this, but other ideas that will reduce the cost of housing. Thank you.
Any other public comments?
Yes, I just wanted to ask if some of the positions that are included in this overlap into different departments. That would be like building department, where you have building inspectors, you have clerks and things like that. Then as you move into the realm of DCC, which was the cannabis, you've got more inspectors there. Do they have the same skill sets as regular building inspectors, and how do they match up? So what I'm concerned about is I don't have a problem with them redoing the fees. They should. People should reimburse the county for the exact amount, and we go through that every once in a while. I think it's called a nexus study or something like that, where we figure out how much it costs for the county to provide certain services. What I want to avoid in this one is that everyone else in the county who goes down and gets a permit or touches building department or something else, they're going to be charged a certain amount of money based on whatever the fees are and how it rolls backwards into those positions. What I would hate to see, and it tends to be a habit sometimes, is that if a different industry other than just private citizens needs to have inspections or fees to get permits and things like that, that they're charged a different fee. But it's the same people doing it, or the same type of people doing it, same skill sets. They're making about the same money. I just hope that it's free, that it's fair across the board, whether you're a private citizen or doing something else in the county that requires a permit. And I just hope that you do it that way. Thank you.
Any other public comments? Or are there any public comments online? Any other board comments? Okay, any other public? I will close the public hearing and bring it back to the board. Open for a motion.
So moved.
I have a motion by Supervisor Stopper.
Second.
Second by Supervisor Hubbard. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0.
Bring vote.
I do have a consultant online, and she has meetings this afternoon, so. Sure.
We're going to take a 5-minute break. We have some technical difficulties at this time. So 5 minutes. right, we are back, and we are going to do item number 26. This is, I received a presentation on 2023-2028 Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy, or the CDS, for Calaveras County, and seek input and direction for priority projects. Kathy Galino, you are up.
Good afternoon, Chair Tofinelli, Honorable Board, Kathy Galino, your Economic and Community Development Director. And I also have Courtney Farrow, who is on with me, which is the consultant that we utilized through the Central Sierra Economic Development District to help us prepare the 5 county SEDS, which is the Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy.
Well, welcome, Courtney.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So I'll go ahead and start with the presentation. Can everyone see that? Yep. There we go. So this is 2 years worth of hard work that the economic development colleagues in the 5 county region, which comprises Amador County, Calaveras, Alpine, Tuolumne, and Mariposa County, we worked on. This is a document, the Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy is a document that we prepare every 5 years, which also keeps us competitive and eligible for EDA grants. So this document is very, very important when we're writing grants, seeking grants. It also provides us direction on the things that we find important and the needs that we need to meet to keep an economically viable county and growing and all the wonderful things. So without further ado, so I kind of mentioned this. I know that you guys are hungry. So it is a regional vision. It guides what our development is. We did do a survey. We've got quite a bit of feedback. We're reaching out to our individual boards in the 5 counties to make sure that if there's any strategies, any things that you want to see. I did speak to Supervisor Garamendi. I know he had to leave, but one of the things that he finds very valuable is regional parks. So that's one of the things that we want to make sure that we include in this document going forward. It also will help us with the SURF funding, which is the funding that's going to be coming down for planning and implementation, not just in the 5 county region, but in the 7 county region that will include Inyo and Mono County. So again, for regional projects. It also does help build collaboration and also capacity building. This is important because a lot of our rural counties just do not have the resources or the capacity to pull a lot of these larger projects off. And so working together is very, very important. Next. So Courtney, do you want to talk about the timeline?
Sure. Good afternoon, Chairman and Board Supervisors. Thank you for having me. As Kathy had mentioned, we've been working closely with the Central Sierra Economic Development District to complete this. Just a quick background, and just so you know our kind of credentials on this. So we work closely with our districts located in the North State, Chico State University. And the other thing that we're working closely with is that also the SURF convener for our region. So we've been working very closely also with the Sierra Business Council, who is the convener for your region. And the importance of that is that the SEDS really helps to guide that process, which is going to bring you to actual implementation dollars. And so we began this process with the district, and we've been doing some work prior to that. So we were brought in, as Kathy mentioned, prior to this in the fall, we did conduct surveys and interviews from all of the 5 counties and their communities. It was a public survey that we had helped pushed out through a variety of the partnerships through the district. And where we are now is that we have a draft completed. We're looking at that right now for feedback. We will be meeting with the district board next week. We are also talking with groups as yourselves, with the Board of Supervisors and other community organizations to give comment. Where we are now is that we are looking at finalizing the draft. The next steps will be to actually draft the guide, implementation, and action plan. That's the last step in the process, which will then go before the board. They will give their input. Once it is finalized, it will go through to a 30-day public comment period, which will be open to everyone to comment on. So this is really to be an inclusive process. But we feel that in our conversations, the feedback that we've received, as well as working closely with the board, that we have tried to capture initiatives and objectives to move forward. So I heard earlier today, and so a lot of the challenges your region is facing, unfortunately, is not common to just you. So we are experiencing a lot of the same, issues and problems that we need to tackle, but we're trying to make to solution based. And so that's really where the SEDS can help guide. And again, it'll also be the foundation for, or a complementary document that will work alongside your SURF strategies, which is also happening right now, so in tandem. We hope to be completed with this project. We'd like to be done by September, definitely no later by the end of this year, but it would be right now is September 2023 to have this completely finalized and then turned into EDA, which is the Economic Development Administration, which oversees this process. You can go next slide, Kathy. So I can keep going if you want, Kathy, or if you want to.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay, so as I mentioned, we did launch the survey. We did one-on-one individual interviews, close upwards of 70 interviews. We've met one-on-one with recommendations from board members, whether that be staff or other community organizations. And really all of the information was very consistent. You can see, again, nothing really earth-shattering that's coming out that's common again to your region. We're seeing this across the state, but really looking at what assets you have, the challenges that are coming. We know infrastructure, housing, talked about earlier, livable wage jobs, opportunities. What are the things that we can really focus on? And a lot of emphasis on the natural landscape, tourism industry, looking at resiliency. That's a common thread that all regions are experiencing and looking at. And then again, like I mentioned, the action plan, which is what we are finalizing right now. In the next slide. Again, just touching again on some of the critical issues as you're working and reading every day. So really, and again, this document, well, Calaveras County is an integral part of it, is really looking at that regional lens. And so how do we get the region together to be looking at these different issues, whether that's infrastructure, housing, the business industry, and again, the resiliency. The thing that's really critical and that we emphasize also in our region, so we have 10 counties, 12 counties in our North State region, 10 in our SURF region, so we understand the vastness and maybe some of the differences as well as the consistencies across counties, but that regional initiative and regional intentionality is critical when it comes to funding. As you probably know, most regional applications now require you to work on a larger scale, not just individual communities. So we're really trying to understand those common threads that would benefit and impact your individual county, but also the region as a whole. Next slide. So quickly, you received this in your packet. It's included, and there is objectives that are listed under each one, but goal one is to achieve a culture of lifelong learning and to ensure a robust talent pipeline with the education and skills needed by existing and prospective employers. And we're really looking at this as, what is that collaboration? What's the industry-driven initiatives? What are their needs? Really understanding what it's going to take to get people into jobs, to make sure that our employers' needs are being met, to upskill employees, and to really tackle those initiatives and challenges that you have in your region or the gaps that you have. I heard a lot earlier about public safety, so that's something that we'll be sure to include. But we are all industry sectors, and really, again, making sure that that collaboration between industry and education is really happening. I know that in your region you have the K-16 initiative, which is a fabulous collaboration, so I encourage all of you that will be in the plan, encouraging you to make sure that participants are collaborating and again, creating that cross-sectoral partnership. Goal 2 is establish programs, policies, and practices that support and encourage economic development that respects the historic and natural environment of the region while improving residents' employment opportunities. So you can see again, a lot of this is all tied to workforce and job opportunities, upskilling, educating our workforce, but then utilizing the assets that you have within your region. And so again, looking at those natural landscapes, we heard from not only you all, but also from your constituents and your community members that parks and natural landscape is really critical. How do we leverage that? How do we build on that? How do we make it more accessible for even those that are visiting from outside the area? So we've talked to a variety of different agencies too, even, looking at highway road and road openings at, critical times so that we can access the resources that you have. And then really, again, looking at those environmental needs and cultural needs that can help promote your region. Goal 3 is expand the region's economic development capacity through stronger collaboration, regular communication, and strategic planning with local, regional, state, tribal, and community partners. And I know that this sounds lofty. I know in talking to jurisdictions, this can be one of the challenges due to capacity internally, let alone capacity of the region, but really having those calming conversations and really starting to look at where your jurisdictions can work better together. And again, understanding the challenges, but when we're talking about this, we're also looking at, are there ways, are there initiatives happening within the counties that could be linked together? Are there permitting and policy topics that could be explored? Because looking at development, when it hits a jurisdictional boundary, that can cause challenges if the process is different or it needs to be halted or stopped. Causes cost increases, delay of projects, things like that. And then there's the communication and looking at, again, what are the efforts or initiatives maybe some other communities are doing? Is there a way to scale? Is there a way that we can look at that so it can benefit the entire region? We're also in here looking at, again, through all of these goals, looking at what the funding sources are. So we have a recommendation on that too, that we understand, again, capacity. I know Kathy has done a lot of work on behalf of the county and as well as the region, writing and pulling those proposals together. It takes a lot of time and resources. And so the recommendations that we're asking, proposing that we'll discuss with the board next week is that the district build their capacity so maybe they can take on this role for the region in a grander capacity and a grander scale. That way you can access more funding initiatives and again, that stronger, as I mentioned earlier, that collaboration is critical when we're looking at these applications because most funders now want to fund at a regional level, not just a per jurisdiction level. The other piece too is your tribal partners. We know, from the state and federal level, there's a lot of resources available for our tribal partners and communities. I can speak to our organization. We've taken an intentional effort of actually hiring a position to focus on this. Again, it takes capacity, so there's funding available to look at that. We're really strengthening those partnerships for allowing them to be on the ground and at the forefront of projects, but also enabling them to be as they should be, and then also making sure that they have access to all of the resources that are available. So helping to be that conduit of information. And so again, too, we would recommend that the district hopefully build more capacity so that they could become also a communication hub for this information to ensure that the jurisdictions have the most current and accessible information when it comes to funding the resources. Goal 4 is identify and implement land management practices, policies, and strategies that incorporate resilience and place-based initiatives. So this is looking at, what are the things that we need to put in place to help navigate and mitigate disasters, navigate economic challenges and downturns, but often result from their disasters. We are also a region that faces many years of fires. We understand, what that means when your population is displaced, your businesses are destroyed, when things are, cut off because there's one way in or one way out of a town. Looking at your, the conversation about tree removal. I live in Butte County, so we're campfire survivors, and we also are facing the same conversation. So what are the things that we can put in place now? What are the conversations we can be having? Again, how does that cross-jurisdictional collaboration really work to address these issues? What are the things that we can put in place moving forward so that we know when these disasters happen, we either have a better response time, so whether that's, utilizing, I think the things that we do is to learn from those post-disaster times when, everyone does pull together and you have your, your SBDCs or you have your business service centers really stepping up and leading a lot of that forefront of the activity along with our, emergency response centers and also our leadership. And so looking at these models that can help us, again, mitigate, withstand, and recover when these disasters happen, but then what are the things we can put in place that will help to also grow economic development base. And I think that's the last goal. As I mentioned, those the objectives are listed in the packet that you were given. The big thing too, so the other thing that we included were the projects that we have been made aware of The thing I want to emphasize is that it is important to have the goals and objectives listed because we want to make sure that we have this sort of all-encompassing, so that if a project is not included in this draft, or if it is something that comes up in the future because this is a 5-year plan, that the goal or objective would cover that. The projects that are listed are really to serve as examples, or the ones that are pretty shovel ready or ready to go, as the state calls it now, that they're funding eligible. Should they receive funding, they could start the project, or maybe it's mid-project and you have a gap or something like that. But it's really, so if you think of it that way, that lens and that framing of it, the goals and objectives are really the driver of the document, and then the implementation and action, which I said we're working on this month, and we will be bringing forward to the board for feedback, and then we'll be available for public comment after that. So, if you have any questions or any feedback for me or Kathy, I'm happy to answer those or give any more information that you may need.
Any board questions, comments? Supervisor Stopper.
Just from chairing the CSEDD and working with you for the last so many years, thank you for all the work that's gone into it. It's been a substantial lift, getting us caught back up and in compliance with the state. And and just to remind everyone, there are specifics that are for Calaveras County that aren't necessarily put in here, but this is a regional SED, and so it's inclusive of 5 different counties. So it's broad, and most of the things that you see on there are inclusive of those things that we would want to state specifically. So they aren't forgotten about. It's in there.
Anyone else?
I'll just add on that, if there are things that are there what you think is really critical to include in this that's specific to Calaveras County, please just send them my way. We'll definitely be sure to incorporate that in. It's not we just don't want you all to feel like it has to be an exhaustive list, because we do point to, we also have a technical appendix that accompanies this, and so your capital improvement projects, a lot of the data, kind of where each county stands economically is included. So we can point to the resources that are already in existence. We also try to reference any plans or strategies that you're operating under right now as well.
I have one comment. That's to goal 4. Since this is 4 counties and 2 cities, I have a little bit of an issue on implement land management practices. All 4 of us have different general plans, including the city, and land management issues and uses are in those general plans. So maybe we could, and I know you identified disasters and recovering from those and is what it's supposed to be, but just reading this outright, implement land management practices is a little bit, perhaps we can add a little bit different verbiage in there so people read it, that we're not changing general plans. For counties. Yeah.
Okay, yes, definitely. Thank you. That's good feedback.
Is there any public comments? Al?
There seems to be, as the Taxpayer Association, there seems to be opportunities to discover ways to reduce the cost of housing. In doing so, we allow better employment opportunities in the construction field, and also people don't want to commute so far if they work in the county. 2 things I can think of is one that's very successful in Copperopolis. This is one of the early Copper Cove development. Has 3 circles that look like a mobile home park, but actually the parcels are privately owned, which tends to encourage a higher level of responsibility. So these type of developments could be encouraged. I'm not sure if economic development can help with that, but perhaps communicating for this sort of thing would help. There's also some good news with Habitat for Humanity in Angels Camp. They're building quite a few units that will become online pretty soon. And we hope for affordable housing. Thank you.
Any
Thank
other
you.
public comments? Any online? Okay, so I'll bring it back to the board. Any board comments?
Thank you.
Thank you, Courtney.
Thank you.
Thank you, Courtney.
Thanks, everyone. This afternoon. God
And I'll
bless you.
just go back with you later this week.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you, everyone. Take care.
All right. Is that it, Kathy? Is that it? Okay, all right, thank you. So, one last question. We are at 12:20. Do we want to go on to the last item, which I already told the sheriff that we were going to do after lunch? But we can contact the sheriff and he can be here. Lunch? You want lunch? Oh, well, I don't then.
Gina?
I didn't know this was going to go that fast.
I'm gonna follow that path. I'm for lunch.
Lunch? All right, we're going to lunch. We will be back here at 1 o'clock.
I'm not rude.
At 1.
12:20.
It's like 12:20. You know how many?
They can't make me a sandwich at Pickle Patch that fast.
That's what I'm saying.
All right, 1:15. All right, we're back from lunch, and we're in 47. This is a recommendation from the Sheriff's Office. Received a presentation by the Calaveras County Sheriff's Office, illegal cannabis grow, eradication of basement program. Sheriff, you're up.
Thank you, Chair. She is my help. Good afternoon and welcome back, everybody. I'm going to need some help to get to the slide presentation because I'm computer illiterate.
Maybe you're talking different.
Maybe I am.
Now,
All right, good afternoon again. I put this presentation, had my staff actually put this presentation together just because we've had a lot of requests, not only from some board members, but from the public to kind of see where we've been, where we're at, and where we're going. And I completely agree. This is information that is good for the public to know. As you can see on the screen, this goes back to 2016 when we had our urgency ordinance. And in 2017, when we were hot and heavy with the urgency ordinance. Once the urgency ordinance expired in late 17, our numbers went down because there was a lot of legal growers that actually left. So we weren't having to deal with them. But we still, as you can see, still dealt with a lot of illegal plants. And you look at 2017, when it was still legal, we were at almost 60,000 plants. And in 2018, we were up to almost 75,000. So there was still a lot of stuff going on in the county. And if you remember, the ones that were on the board back in 2016, when we started the program, when we came to the board and said, you know, we needed staff to handle this, I told you then that it was going to take 5 or 6 years to get a handle on this. And as we progress through the years, you'll see how the numbers have gone down. So we are making quite a bit of a difference. 2019 and 20 and 21 were pretty heavy years. I come to the board back then and actually told you that we were doing sometimes up to 3 and 4 eradications a day. And we were doing that probably 3 times a week. So there was a lot of marijuana activity at that point. Once the board changed it and made things legal, which, correct me if I'm wrong, that was in 2020, or was it? 19. It was in 18, 19, somewhere in there. There was still a lot of illegal grows out there. And they were under the premise that they would hide within the legal growers, kind of like they did in the beginning in 2016 and 17. But with the help of code compliance back then, that was kind of before the cannabis control division, we were able to work with them. We had GIS do our overflights, and we were able to map things out and go. We could look at a lot and find out on our maps if it was a legal grow. So it was very easy. It was what we want to call easy pickings, because they were out growing marijuana, and all we had to do was look up the GIS, the APN number, and we would know that they were illegal. So that's why the numbers were so high in those few years there, because we weren't really, we were doing a lot of illegal grows, and the word really hadn't gotten out that, hey, don't go to Calaveras. Well, if you look at 2022, it dropped significantly. And again in 2023, and we're 7 months into it, and you can see where we're at. So the numbers have gone down tremendously. So the program is working. I hear a lot of people say, well, what if they take away the marijuana program? Well, I be very blunt with your board. If you take away this program, that's going to open those doors back up, and our numbers are going to go back up. The fact that we continually hit these illegal grows is what's keeping these numbers down. If we don't do that, it's going to end up coming back. And we've seen a transition. We've seen a transition from the outdoor grows to indoor grows. We have a good working relationship with PG&E and our constituents who call and say, hey, a lot of activity in this house, supposed to be a vacant house. You might want to take a look at it, and our folks go and look at it, and we end up doing a lot of indoor grows now. So it's kind of twofold. We get a lot of information from the public, and we have some good contacts within PG&E. Here's just the last 2 years, 22, 23, the amount of eradications we had. It shows the percentage of difference between the 2 years. You can see in 22, we eradicated almost 44,000 plants, and here to date, we're at 8,000 plants. Now, mind you, they don't start, they're still in the growing process, so we're still actively looking for those illegal grows. When they start harvesting in late September, October, you might see these numbers go up a little bit because they're easier to spot, obviously, because they're bigger plants. Marijuana concentrate, which is your hash, 322 pounds last year, and we've gotten none this year, which again is a good sign that people aren't doing hash labs. So we're making a difference. Our arrests have gone down again considerably. Look at the firearms that we took off the street in 2022 alone. There's 56 firearms we took off the street. So that's huge. It keeps our community safe. Indoor cultivations per year in 2016, 17, and 18, realistically, we weren't focusing on the indoor grows as much because the outdoor grows were so in your face out there. So we were really focusing on them. And as time again has progressed, if you look at 2019 and 20, the numbers started climbing a little bit. And in 21, the indoor grows went up quite a bit. And that's because the outdoor grows were starting to decline because of the impact that we've had on those outdoor grows. And this year here, again, 7 months into it, we're down to 5 indoor sites. So they're making headway, and we're having a big impact on the illegal program. These are repeated sites out of 48 sites that have been eradicated. Obviously, you can read it, one site 6 times, another site 5 times, another site, that's not bee like a sting bee, so just so you know, it's a spelling error, my fault. 4 times. We had 5 sites that we have eradicated 3 times, and 40 sites have been eradicated at least twice. That kind of goes back to, like I spoke earlier this afternoon or this morning about once we clear a site, we can't go back without a search warrant. When we go and clear a site, and I've had multiple people ask me, why don't we take their plumbing? Why don't we take their fans? Why don't we take their lights? Well, first off, I have to have a judge sign a search warrant saying we can take that stuff. And number 2, and actually most importantly, I have nowhere to put this stuff. These sites have a lot of product that they utilize to grow their marijuana. We just don't have the area, and it still has to be, per the search warrant, a direct nexus to the marijuana grow, and there could be a controversy on whether lights are, conducive to it. They're grow lights, in our opinion, they are, but sometimes the judges don't want to do that. And again, it's a big impact to the county. We wouldn't have the place. My back parking lot would be full of lights and hoses and stuff, so it just doesn't work. So we take what we can legally take, and what ends up happening is these guys have grow houses or grow somewhere else. They'll take those plants and they'll bring it back to the place we just eradicated 2-3 weeks later thinking, well, the cops aren't going to come back. But we do, obviously, by those numbers. We absolutely come back. And then 25 of the repeated sites were previously registered or had applied for registration during the urgency ordinance. So things have changed. That's it. Short and sweet. If you have any questions, again, I just want to show some numbers, the statistics for what's going on out there.
Well, having this discussion with you for years before I was on the board and everything, Rick, and we got work to do to retain positions in the sheriff's department, but at the same time, we have supported you quite a bit in the past when it comes to supporting money and resources when it comes to the Met team and following through with this. And I just want to thank you for you following through and the success you've had, because you're absolutely right. 6 years ago, you're like, we aren't going to be able to fix it tomorrow. And just you and I sitting down and talking about it, it's like a couple of years ago, you're like, I think the word's starting to get out. And I talked to someone in Mariposa County, and they're like, we just busted somebody, and they said they used to do it in Calaveras County. And they're like, why aren't you still doing it there? It's like, because those guys are coming down on us with a sledgehammer. And that's because of the good work you've done, Rick. So just thank you overall. It's starting to show the success.
It's the staff. And I mean, we've made some changes. I was able to use AB 443 funds, so no cost to the general fund, to buy that truck, the tractor, and the trailer. That mechanized it. We bought a lot of, believe it or not, chainsaws to cut, because some of these trees get to be 2-3 inches around on diameter, and cutting those with a machete is a lot of work. And as you all know, most of you know, I used to go out there. Rochelle used to go out there. We were actually physically out there cutting these plants down, and it's a backbuster. It really is. It's a lot of work. So we started buying sawzalls and then chainsaws, and so we've enhanced our program to fit the needs to get this job done. And I give all the credit to my staff, because they're the ones out there. I mean, I might be out there cutting and stuff, but they're the ones with the ideas. So they've been super.
Any other comments? No.
You guys don't have marijuana in your district.
Yeah.
You get a little bit.
She does?
That's how I heard.
A little bit in her backyard.
In District 3, we actually were up in Tamarack, up at the Boy Scout, at Camp Wolfboro, a couple of times for marijuana grows. Absolutely. Yeah. So they do occur in the high country. They don't get real big, but they do occur in the high country, but not like you would think. So.
Yeah, well, I want to echo what Supervisor Stopper said. I want to thank you and your crew and your staff and things that you do. You've obviously made an impact on it, and you were correct years ago when you said it's not going to happen overnight. But obviously it's working and things are going down, and they're probably getting more sophisticated on some of the things they do as you go forward that you have to stay on top of, not just inside a house, but making the house look like somebody lived there or what have you. So, you're just not fighting the same thing as you were as you go along each year. And you guys seem to be staying up with it. So kudos to you guys.
They definitely evolve. I mean, the bad guys, they have a lot of time on their hands to think of new ways to do stuff. But it does. My staff is very diligent in finding what they're doing and how to get around it to figure out that they are in fact growing. And I got to tell the public, thank you, because I'm going to tell you that probably 75% of the indoor grows are because neighbors are saying something. If you see something, say something, because you don't know, especially when we were, back in the day when we were going through homes being foreclosed on and stuff, that was huge. And we're still seeing, not homes being foreclosed on as much, but we're still seeing a lot of rental homes. I mean, I think I told some of you folks that my next door neighbor rented his house out and it ended up being a grow until I walked over and looked in the window and saw a big array of green. So obviously they didn't know the sheriff lived next door to them. But the public is a great set of eyes and ears for us. And I got to thank them very much for what they've done, because they give us the tips, whether it's anonymous or not, and it makes a huge difference. It's their community. So I'm glad that they're being involved.
Yeah, so am I.
Yeah.
I think that's the way to go.
Absolutely.
Any other board comments?
I just want to say that, Ed, to the guys that are doing it right, this really helps them. So thank you for that.
It does, absolutely.
Thank you.
Public comments. Do we have any public comments?
First of all, I would like to say thank you, Rick. It's a hard job. Thank you both. It's a hard job. It's painful. There's probably people you knew that were growing that you didn't know were growing. It's a due diligence job that you got to do it. And I personally thank you, because Maddox is no longer doing it because of me. And I just want to say thank you to the board for allowing it to not be an R&R. I live in R&R. And it doesn't happen in my neighborhood anymore because I'm such a what about it. I follow people in their house, to their house. But it's hard. It's you can see the proof on the numbers. You guys are doing exceptional. And I, from my heart of hearts, say thank you. Thank you.
First of all, I'd like to direct my comments to the sheriff. I started down this marijuana road in 2011. That's when we were trying to open the first pot shop up in Arnold. I've worked with the sheriff over the years. He's been free with information, tells us what to do, what to look for. When we first started out, the information from the sheriff was we had somewhere between 1,500 and 2,000 grow sites in Calaveras County. Now we're down to a couple dozen, 50 or 60, and they're all regulated. I know there's still renegades out there that want to grow it in between the visits and all that, but I compliment the sheriff, in contrast to some of my comments earlier, that he's finding it because he's looking for it. And when he finds it, he does something about it, and the problem is solved. And the message goes out to people outside this county: if you go to Calaveras County, watch out. You're not going to get away with it for long. Some of the numbers are striking. And I appreciate Deputy Stark's mixel messages that I get. It's a little hard to follow because it's like a month of the MET team and all that. But when I look through some of these, and we've had this conversation at the CCRP meeting, with all these repeat arrests or eradications, I mean, 6 times. What does it take to get arrested? If you defy the law 6 times, and then with some of the indoor grows, Why aren't we turning those people, and I mentioned this to you before, over to ICE? They're obviously Chinese nationals. They have no interest in the property. They're rounded up. The owner's in Shanghai. The building is a hazmat site. And what happens to these people? We never hear back from the DA what the disposition is. And I don't know if you can even arrest a Chinese national. What happens to them? Do they go through the revolving door and come right back again? Or are they in Shanghai? You know, if they leave, that's good. But some of these numbers are just shocking. But it's a testament to what the sheriff does, what he's been doing, what he continues to do, and the professional nature of the entire sheriff's department. They're all ready to help. They're all ready to listen. And I've never had the sheriff say, I don't want to hear about it. He always says, tell me. And we'll talk about it. And when things get done, and that I can pass out to other people in my circle, that the sheriff is on our side. He's helping to take care of Calaveras County. And I want to thank you, Sheriff DeBasilio, for your office, all the people on the force, and especially for you for leading them. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Vicki Ranke. I too, of course, want to say thank you to the Sheriff's Department for doing what you are for the illegal grows. I just want to make my little statement that we made way back when, and that is if we had no marijuana allowed in our county, you could get them all and they'd be gone. But now they're hiding between these ones that are permitted, so you have still a job to do, and we're glad about that. And that's one of the reasons for wanting to fund the Sheriff's Department. Although taxpayers are paying for this eradication, we will do it because it's important to us, but just think of the possibilities if we didn't have these marijuana grows here. Bill kind of mentioned it, but are you finding cartels in this county? Because I know they're everywhere in California. Yeah, and I'm just curious, and hopefully if that's the case, we can come up with some kind of solutions to get them out of here. But anyway, thank you.
Any other public comments? Are there any online? Okay, I'll bring it back to the board. Is there any final board comments?
Supervisor Toffanelli, if I could.
Absolutely, sure.
I'd like to answer some of the questions that were asked, just because they're pretty simple questions. The arrest, or what happens. A couple of things. Typically, the people that we're finding when Ms. Renke, when you ask about the cartel, we're not really seeing the cartel here. What we're seeing is worker bees. The people that own these indoor grows, outdoor grows are from out of the area, 99% of the time. So we're not finding the property owners or the person that's in charge of growing it. What we're finding is worker bees. We do arrest them, but they get released because marijuana in the state of California is a legal product. So they get released because it's typically a misdemeanor. And in Barbara's defense, they usually don't show up for court because they're out of the area and they're never coming back. So when it comes to arrest, we are arresting the ones, and it actually got to the point to where we were just citing them in the field, because to arrest them, bring them to the jail, because when we bring them to the jail, they're going to get released anyhow. We're just saving a step so that our staff members aren't being overwhelmed inside the jail. So we cite them in the field. They go on their merry way. They never show up. And again, as far as the cartel, what we're finding is a lot of this is the Chinese nationals. And I brought this to the board, Barbara and I both, quite a few years ago, looking at trying to get a forensic team together to chase that money. If you all remember back in 2018 or 19, the DOJ stepped in and they eradicated 114 homes between Sacramento, Carmichael, and here. And we had 14 of those homes in our county, and they were all associated to a Chinese bank in China. So that's where the bigger part, we're not seeing the Mexican cartel. And when people hear cartel, they think Mexican cartel. We're not seeing that. We used to see that years ago out in the national forest. We're not seeing that anymore. And as far as ICE goes, I cannot ask nationality or if they have a green card. I can't, that's not my job. That is the federal government's. We've been prohibited from doing that. So if we arrest them, we book them under the name that they give us. If we can ID them, we do. But we do not contact ICE. It's against the law, federal law, for me to contact ICE. Okay? So I think that answered all the questions. And again, the hiding between, they're not so much hiding in between the grows anymore. They were back in the beginning, I will give you that, but now they're not, because we know who the legal grows are. So if they pop up as these outdoor grows, we're on them like flies on honey. So, see how I clean that up?
Product.
So, there you go.
Okay, thank you, Rick.
Can I just ask one last question?
Absolutely.
Do you think these people are trafficked?
Do I think it? I think some of them probably are. Maybe more in the beginning, and again, maybe not so much now, just because we have so few of them. I'm sure there was a time, and some of you remember the big grow up here at the old airport. There was no way to prove that those people were trafficked, but just the way they conversed with us and the things that were going on, I can almost guarantee you they probably were. But again, now I'm not thinking so much up here. I think because believe it or not, some of the sites that I've gone to in recent times on the indoor grows, it's husband and wife. And they're the ones doing it. So, yeah, I don't think we're seeing the trafficking up here like they are down maybe in San Bernardino or, Riverside and those types of bigger counties.
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Thank you, Rick. And thank you, Rochelle.
Thank your team.
And thank your team. Absolutely. All right. Good information. All right, we'll move on to the next item on our agenda, which is supervisor announcements. In compliance with Government Code 53232.3D, board members shall provide brief reports on any meetings attended at the expense of the local agency and may make other announcements or report out. And we'll start with Supervisor Huberty.
Thank you, Chair Toffenelli. I attended on July 26th the CMCAA meeting. On July 27th and 28th, I attended the CSAC conference for new supervisors and have finished and have my certificate to prove it. And on August 3rd, I attended the Agency on Aging in Sonora. Sonora. Thank you.
Supervisor Pollendorf.
I too attended the meeting with Martin at I always get the acronym wrong.
CMCAA.
Yeah, thank you. And then Chairman Toffenelli and I went to the COG last week. COG voted OSTEP, right? Was it OSTEP? OSTEP?
Yeah.
Money? Voted for the regional, to fund the regional top priority project, which is Wagon Trail. So that there was OSTEP money left over.
There was money left over. There was about $728,000, to which we put $228,000 to another project, but there was $500,000. I'm speaking.
Yeah, basically.
That went to the Wagon Trail. We voted to put towards Wagon Trail. And there's some good news coming up first from that meeting for funding on phase 1 and phase 2. Some very good news coming up that we hope to report out here next month.
It was a good signal. Caltrans was on that meeting as well. Just the commitment to the county and the regional transportation agency, along with the city of Angels, to getting this project completed. So it was a good, unified and collaborative effort with our partners.
Supervisor Stopper.
I attended a special meeting, the CSEDD meeting board last week. This, as you got the SEDS update, we also are moving forward on some of the planning grant on mapping for broadband that we had already acquired the grant. So we're sending out RFP for that contract. We have other opportunities that are going out for grants and everything. We've got a very large sum of money coming in successfully on grants. And CSEDD, we've contracted like with the COVID economic relief funds, the SURF funds, like Sierra Business Council, for example. And then just talking to Dave Teeney, who's been facilitating since we switched over from actually having a paid executive officer over there. We're looking at ideas on how we're going to move forward in the future to have the right people in place to facilitate this, and most likely it's going to be contracting out and not having a executive officer there just to bypass problems we've had in the past. But that's ongoing talks and everything. There's a lot of money going through CSEDD right now that's going to be, help out our county and the other 4 counties in it a lot. So yeah, a lot of good work's been going in.
And I'll report out saying that I did attend the COG meeting with Supervisor Fallendorf, and yes, we did, the whole board voted 7-0 to put the $500,000 towards the Raglan Trail project, so that cuts it into the deficit a lot. And again, we had some conversation about next month and some funding coming through to finish that complete phase 1. And then some funding we talked about for phase 2 as we move on to that. So I feel pretty good right now about funding for finish phase 1 and move forward and work with Caltrans to complete the other phase 2, which is right now going through environmental and easement rights. That's going fairly well. So we should have all that out of the way when we're ready to start the construction portion of phase 2. So. Teresa, do you have anything you wish to report out?
I do. So Chairman Toffmanelli, other members of the board, as you know, our office has been working with all of the county departments and our special committee to implement the board's strategic plan. Part of the strategic plan was a revenue workshop that the board had requested. We have that scheduled November 1st and 2nd. I will be sending out, hold the dates for your board, and then that will be a public meeting. So any members of the public that want to hear information about the revenues the county receives, as your board is aware, a lot of the revenue we receive is for specific purposes, but just taking a look at those purposes and what else we might be able to accomplish is always a good idea. So we're looking forward to that.
Good. Sarah? Nothing? Okay. Stacy?
No.
Susan? No? Well, if we don't, if that's it, then we stand adjourned.